Good evening, everybody, and welcome to the Max Racing eSeries as we go on holiday for the next 2 weeks. We're in Spain at the Circuit de Barcelona, Catalunya this week before we head to America and the Lime Rock Park circuit next week as we move now into the final phase of competition. 4 more weeks of racing left. 8 races to decide the outcome of what has been a fascinating championship already in the Max Racing eSeries, as this field full of professional and sim racing drivers go toe-to-toe, door handle to door handle in some of the best virtual touring car racing you'll likely ever see. And with a championship that really couldn't be a whole lot closer as well. We've got all of the ingredients tonight for some more top quality entertainment and some fabulous racing. My name is Andy McEwen. I'll be joined in a moment or two by Dan Blake, my regular co-commentator for this championship. And we're both really excited to see what happens next, because this championship has kept us on the edge of our seat right the way through, really. We have had 12 races so far. We've had lots of different race winners, lots of different drivers who have finished on the podium at one time or another. And as we move into the final third of the championship now, there are only 5 championship points separating our top 2 drivers, and it's almost as close in the Pro Championship as well. So lots to keep an eye on as we move to races tonight. Before we do that, though, let's remind ourselves of everything that happened a week ago when we were back in the UK at the Snetterton 300 circuit, and that championship battle between Kieran Harrison and Nickel Foggy he started to swing back in the direction of Nickel, really. He'd been falling back at the previous couple of rounds, and despite the fact that Kieran Harrison won the first race, over the course of the night, it was Foggy that came out best. Harrison won race 1, though, Turnbull second, Nickel Foggy was in third, so the top 3 drivers in the championship locked out the podium places in the first race of the night, with Josh Malin taking another Pro-class victory, 4th place overall for him. Bobby Thompson was second in the pros, and Dave Newsham got himself into third. The full race 1 result, or at least the point scoring positions here, you can see Kieran Harrison taking the victory, Turnbull second and Foggy third. We're down to 15th place scores points in this championship, so Lee Horn is in 15th, was in 15th place for that first race. Kieran Harrison fastest lap, though, so he was the maximum point scorer. Started on pole, won the race, and set the fastest lap. Sadly, though, that was as good as his night would get, because race 2 was a little bit of a disaster for Kieran Harrison. Race 2 was won by Jason Cooper, who took his first victory of the season. Maxime Ramstein made a welcome return to the podium. He hadn't been on the podium since way back at Silverstone earlier on in the first half of the season, and Nickel Foggy was third. The significance of that was that Kieran Harrison was an awful lot further down the order. Bobby Thompson won the Pro class, Josh Malin second, and Ricky Collard got himself onto the Pro podium for, again, the first time this season. It was how the rest of the point scorers looked. It was Cooper with the win, Ramstein second, Foggy third, and all the way down in 11th on the road, Kieran Harrison, but actually 14th place is where he ended up, because there was a penalty applied post-race to Kieran Harrison for contact with Johnny Brandon, which actually pushed him down to 14th, meaning he only scored 2 championship points from that race, with his big rival Nickel Foggy up there on the podium. What does this mean for the championship? Well, as you can see, it's very, very tight. 5 points separate Kieran Harrison and Nickel Foggy, with Matthew Turnbull sort of creeping back into contention. He had a 2nd and a 6th place finish a week ago at Snetterton, and he sits 3rd in the points on 148, but he really needs to get back to winning ways tonight, realistically, if he's to put himself right back into the championship conversation. And then there's a great fight going on for 4th place on back. Maxime Ramstein, Jack Sedgwick, David Baker, Jason Cooper, and Josh Malin. 5 drivers covered by 11 points as they fight for best of the rest behind the championship top 3. So all still to play for in the overall championship. In the Pro Championship, Josh Malin is looking like the man to beat. He's on 211 points. Bobby Thompson has moved into 2nd place now, and Dave Newsham 3rd. That's because Dan Harper sadly couldn't be with us a week ago at Snetterton, and it looks as though real-world racing is once again starting to take priority for Dan, because he's not able to race with us tonight either, and he's going to likely fall further and further down the order. Max Coates is back, though. He sits 5th in the points and could move further up with a good pair of races tonight. That sets the scene then for the 2 races tonight at Barcelona. But before that, we have a qualifying session, which is just getting underway now. 15 minutes for the drivers to set a lap time around the 2.94 mile circuit. We're on the what they class as the historic version of the circuit, which really does make me feel old, because I remember when this was just the actual Grand Prix circuit here at the Circuit de Catalunya back in the mid-90s. Basically, it doesn't have that fiddly little chicane in the final sector, so the last 2 corners are those 2 really quick right-handers that lead them out onto the pit straight. The hairpin at the end of the back straight down at turn 10 is long, wide hairpin as well. That's the part of the circuit that the field is just making its way towards now on the outlap in this qualifying session. So as the drivers get themselves up to speed, get some heat into the tyres, I think we can now introduce the second member of our comms team, Dan Blake, who is with us now. I know he's had a bit of a mad rush to get back from work, because real world life is starting once again to get rolling, and Dan has rushed home to be with us tonight, and I'm sure, Dan, you're going to be rewarded 2 more fantastic races. It'll be well worth the effort to get here in time, I'm sure.
Good afternoon, Andy. Good evening, shall I say. Good evening, viewers. Yeah, it's been a bit of a surprising return from furlough, shall we say, a bit sooner than expected. But it's fantastic to be back in time to watch this racing. And we saw last week at Snetterton that the points gap increased even further, especially with that penalty for Kieran Harrison for the contact with Nickel Foggy's teammate Johnny Brandon as well. So that was an interesting factor as well. And as you say, we're on the historic circuit. This circuit first started hosting Formula One races back in 1991. So it's going to be interesting to see. This was a much faster layout than the current configuration. I think that will be complementary for some more great racing.
Seen that these high-speed, wide-open circuits, places like Donington Park, Silverstone, Snetterton, Monza, of course, another Formula One circuit we've raced at this season, they really do work well with these identical Audi RS3 LMS TCR cars, because they are not the most aerodynamic of cars, and so they punch quite a big hole in the air. The slipstream effect is quite substantial, and that keeps racing and close, which is exactly how we like it. Just as close as the championship is, Dan. 5 points in it with only 8 races to go. I really kind of thought that by the time we got to Barcelona, I kind of circled this round at the start of the season as, yeah, by this point, we're probably going to have a good idea who the championship's going to be. I don't know about you, I am still none the wiser. I mean, I haven't even counted out Matthew Turnbull yet in 3rd place in the championship. It's still wide open between those top 3 drivers.
Maxson Ramstein also maybe with an outside chance, but it's going to require those 3 ahead of him to have some bad nights. But as you say, 3 drivers still going with a chance when we have 4 meetings left, including tonight, and it's to say we're still no closer. And that is the great thing about this Power Max Racing eSeries. It's been very close, and I really can't wait to see how this season progresses. And I think tonight will be some more twists and turns on the way to our finding out who our champion's going to be.
Yeah, no, absolutely. They've been almost inseparable, those top 2 in the championship, really. Kieran Harrison's had more victories. He's had 5 wins so far this season, which could prove to be significant if they end the season tied on points, of course. The countback would go to the driver with the most victories. At the moment, Harrison has more wins than anyone. He's won 5 races so far this season, as opposed to Foggy's 3. They've both had 7 podiums, 10 top 5s for Nicole Foggy as opposed to 8 for Harrison. Average start, 5 for Harrison, 6 for Foggy. Average finish is 4 for both of them. So they both have almost identical stats. The big difference really has been that extra couple of victories for Harrison. You score 20 points for a win, plus a bonus point for leading a lap. So essentially you get 21 points for winning the race, as opposed to 17 points for finishing in second. And that 4-point swing make all the difference, especially how finely poised things have been so far this season. The qualifying session then underway, and Bobby Thompson is your provisional pole sitter at the moment on 154.55. Kieran Harrison 2nd, and Ashley Beard in 3rd. But I think even on a long layout like this, Dan, his lap times are not going to come at the start of the session. The drivers still need that first lap or so, don't they? Not just to build the temperature up in the tyres, but to build the pressure up and get themselves into that qualifying rhythm.
we've seen the best times of the session sort of come towards the middle and to the end of the session. As you say, they just warming themselves up as much as the cars and getting themselves into that place they need to be to set the race. And of course, slipstream may be another factor as well. Got a big long straight as well towards the end of the lap, and also the start-finish straight as well. So there are 2 or 3 opportunities where having someone to help you with a slipstream. I reckon the slipstream could be as much as half a second, if not more, tonight, just for those 2 long straights.
If you can work with somebody, and we've seen, haven't we, teammates at play in the past. Nicole Foggy and Johnny Brandon have worked well together in qualifying sessions thus far this season, and I'm seeing a lot of pairing up going on throughout the crocodile here. Lots of drivers trying to work with teammates. Kieran Harrison, though, at the back of that big queue, has just set the new fastest time, a 1:53.84. David Baker second place, and in third place, a new name to the championship. He's just been demoted to 4th, actually, as Matthew Turnbull jumps onto the front row alongside Harrison. But Adrian Campfield, 4th place at the moment. He is a pretty well-established single-seater driver, and he is the guest driver in this DNA livery car tonight. He has raced as high as the ADAC German Formula 3 Championship. He is a former winner of the prestigious Walter Hayes Trophy, which is a end-of-season shootout for Formula Ford 1600 races at Silverstone every year. He's a very, very quick open-wheel driver, but he's acclimatising well already to these tops, the Audi TCR cars. He's running 4th quickest right now, with Bobby Thompson in 5th. That's impressive stuff, that's Major in Campfield, Dan. This is not a Formula Ford, nor does it handle, I would imagine, anything like a Formula Ford or a single-seater, and yet he's right on the pace immediately.
We've seen drivers come into this championship and really struggle, but as you say, Adrian Campfield really sort of has got used to this very quickly, and it's great to see him so high. And we've seen pros winning races before. It'll be interesting to see where Campfield puts himself in within that pro sort of market as well. You've got Josh Mayland, Bobby Thompson, Dave Newsham. They've sort of been the class acts of the pro field this season, and Adrian Campfield looks like he could be quite quick in contention for some podiums potentially in the pro class tonight.
In here, going slowly. I think he's trying to find himself either clean air or someone to draft with, because we are seeing this slipstream make a pretty big difference already to the lap times. Matthew Turnbull, meanwhile, and Bobby Thompson, 2nd and 5th respectively in the session, both have headed into the pit lane for a change of tyres. Maxime Ramstein goes 2nd. We're seeing quite a few improvements in this group. Maxime Ramstein jumps onto the front row and immediately bails out, and I think that's Harrison behind him. So those two working together. Harrison just went quicker again, and they're both going to fast track to the pit lane. So Harrison on pole now with a 1:53.7. Ramstein 2nd is 2/10 slower, and then a further 10th back to Matthew Turnbull, Jason Cooper 4th, and David Baker in 5th. You do well, by the way, dear viewer, to take note of these lap times, because when we get into the races tonight, Fast R competition is still running. If you can correctly predict the fastest race lap of the night, so not qualifying, but the fastest race lap across either of the 2 races tonight, to the nearest 1,000th of a second, you will win £10,000 courtesy of Fast R magazine. It's been a season-long competition they've been running, and no one has won it yet, but we've had a few drivers have got very, very close to the fastest lap time. So if you can it and post it on Fast R's social media pages, then you could win yourself that £10,000, which is well worth having a bash at, I would say. So the Fast R competition, also PowerMax themselves running a competition. If you share the stream that you're watching tonight on Facebook or any other social media platform, then you will be entered into a competition to win. I believe this week's prize is a print of a PowerMax Racing British Touring car, courtesy of Pop Bang Colour. And if you don't know Ian from Pop Bang Colour, then it's well worth heading over to his website too, because he creates fabulous artwork in some pretty wacky ways, actually. And if you share the stream, that's all you have to do. Just like it and share it, and you will be entered into a raffle to win of a British touring car. So lots of ways that you can win yourself some money or some goodies tonight. But we are, for now, Dan, very much concentrating on this qualifying session. No improvement yet in lap times from Kieran Harrison, but he is back out on track again. And
also, we were looking at the PDC Racing League Season 2 champion, Freddie Hewitt. And it'll be interesting to see if he's able to use that momentum he's gained from other series to do well in this one. As we see, as you say, Ricky Collard on circuit now as well. Ricky Collard currently in 22nd place. Kieran Harrison on an outlap, Maxine Ramstein, Jason Cooper, and Adrian Campfield as well. So out of our top 10, it's interesting because we haven't really seen this happening until sort of the last couple of rounds. Drivers have tended to stay out for the whole session, but we are now seeing them have a couple of different goes at having 2 different runs for qualifying.
Well, of course, don't forget as well, the last couple of racetracks here at Barcelona, Snetterton last week as well, they're both around the 3-mile mark, which means that they're the 2 longest circuits, along with Monza, I guess, that we race at all season long. So maybe they're finding they're not getting as many laps out of the tyres before the pace starts to drop off. So that tactical mid-session pit stop might be necessary here, but maybe not at sort of the shorter tracks that we visit again towards the end of the season. We'll find out, I guess, whether that continues next week at the slightly shorter Lime Rock Park circuit. We're following Jamie Dory here in the next-gen racing car, and Jamie is down in 21st, just behind Lee Horn, actually. So is the 2 teammates down there just at the tail end of the top 20. Well, Foggy improved whilst I was talking about competitions into 4th place, so he has now found a bit more speed. Callum Newsham there has damage, not quite sure how he sustained that, but he has peeled to the pit lane from some way down the order. Yes, 19th. He's being out-qualified by his dad at the moment, so that won't go down too well in the Newsham household. Dave Newsham is 17th, and Callum is 19th. Here, though, is the Joyce Design car of Nicole Foggy, 2nd place in the championship. Back out on track now. This is an outlap from the pit lane on fresh tyres. He could have time for at least 1, maybe 2 fast laps after this. He's to find, though, 3.5 tenths of a second to challenge Harrison for that pole position. Ain't going to be easy, is it?
No, the XVR car of Nicole Foggy, as you say, he's trying to find a lap time, but he really he's only just over 3.5 tenths off pole position, but he's put him in 4th. That's sort of the calibre of what we got in this championship. And Nicole Foggy, that may be a track limit infringement there. He did take a lot of curb there. Be interesting to see if he got away with that one, because that did look like a lot of curb taken on the inside there.
Yes, he might get away with it because this is, I think, his outlap from the pit lane, so it might not be that... I mean, they can disallow the lap time if they want, I suppose, but it's not actually going to make a huge difference. Here we're seeing the old version, I suppose, of this hairpin down at turn 10, which is, I think, the version that the MotoGP riders use when they compete here, but doesn't often get used these days for 4-wheeled racing, so that's another interesting alteration to the circuit. And then here, this real roller coaster ride down through the penultimate couple of corners. It maybe takes away the curb hopping antics that we would see at the chicane, but there's no doubting that's a spectacular piece of road. Those final 2 corners are proper commitment corners, aren't they?
Oh, exactly. It just makes you think back to the 90s F1 and just with all that downforce, that must have been a completely different class. But even for these TCR drivers, I'm sure they're going to be enjoying that last section. It's very fast and it's very frenetic. The chicane may have produced a bit more action in terms of curb hopping, but I think as far as overtaking goes, it's maybe even actually a bit more beneficial to have the longer circuit, because it means you can set them up down the long pit straight for a move into turn 1 without having to slow down as much as we would have with the modern chicane.
Yes, indeed. It's got a nice flow to it as well, that final sector now, which I suspect is the reason that the drivers have voted to use this one. Here is Kieran Harrison then, provisional pole sitter and championship leader as well by 5 points, despite that penalty that he had last time out for the contact with Johnny Brandon. He's buddied up again with Maxine Ramstein now. These two have both been in the pit lane. They're both out there on fresh tyres, and they're both continuing to work with each other. That's interesting to me because, in a way, Ramstein needs to not be helping Kieran Harrison. The further down the order Harrison starts, the better for Ramstein, because he's 4th in the championship with quite a deficit, about getting on for just over 70 points behind Ramstein he is coming into this weekend, or tonight's racing, I should say. So, in a way, a strange person for him to buddy up with, but then at the same time, Maxine knows that Kieran has been the qualifying maestro this season, so maybe that's why, and there's been a collision for Josh Malin there with Mike Epps, it looks like, going up through turn 3. Never good news in a qualifying session where you've got 2 cars going off together. Josh Malin is 6th fastest at the moment. He is the top pro. Yes, he is the top pro in the session right now. Mike Epps is all the way down in 16th, so not having quite such a good session. It looks as though their sessions have ended simultaneously in the turn 3 gravel trap.
That's another point there as well, Andy. It's not good when you're doing that with 20 seconds left of the session because it means you're not going to get another time in. And as with last week, we've got the differentiation between the sim drivers and the pro drivers. If we look to the right of the names, the sim drivers are in yellow and we have black for our pro drivers. Adrian Campfield is second in our pros. Josh Maiden currently leading the pros. The checkered flag's out. We're looking at Sean Hollenby on the screen at the moment. He's currently in 27th place overall. So Sean Hollenby 27th, nearly 5 seconds off the pace. So Sean Hollenby looking to try and gain more experience on the track with every lap he goes on.
Yeah, that sounds like a lot, but as we've made the point, it is a long lap, this one. It's also a circuit that won't have as much experience of course. Most, if not all, of the pro drivers have raced on the UK circuits that we use, but not many of them. We saw this at Monza a bit as well. It kind of throws the cat among the pigeons, these international circuits that maybe are not the bread and butter of a lot of these drivers. Even those that spend a lot of time sim racing, maybe they tend to prioritise the British tracks, not too sure, but it's definitely led to a bit of a mix-up of the order here. Doesn't look like anyone's going to beat Kieran Harrison, though. 2 tenths quicker than anybody else. Johnny Brandon goes through and improves to 9th, though, so he gets himself into the top 10, but not quite on the pace of his teammate Nicole Foggy, who is 4th. Here come Ramstein and Harrison. Now look at the way that Harrison's caught Ramstein on this lap. It could be a further improvement. It's not, but he's only 7/100ths of a second behind his previous best pole position time, so he set at least 2 laps quick enough for pole. Nicole Foggy in the background came through as well and did not improve, so he stays in 4th. Ramstein also, for what it's worth, didn't find any extra time, so I think we're pretty much done. Mark Fletcher, one of the last drivers to finish the session. Kieran Harrison, though, looks as though he's going to take that extra point for pole position, and that means that he'll have provisionally a 6-point cushion going into the first of the 2 races tonight. Maxson Ramstein, though, will be alongside him on that front row, and Nicole Foggy, again, Dan, is the weakest of the championship contenders in qualifying. We saw this a week ago at Snetterton. He struggled in qualifying, raced his way through quite nicely, but you're making life harder for yourself when you're qualifying behind those that you're fighting for a championship with.
Exactly. You want to be as close to them as possible. He is only in 4th, so it's not all lost for Nicole. And I think Nicole may be a slightly better racer than qualifier, as we've seen him go through the field previously as the qualifying session comes to an end very shortly. That's to say, the last couple of cars just crossing the line. But it's interesting to see that Ramstein and Harrison working together were able to go 1 and 2. So their unlikely alliance has paid off very well for them.
Yes, indeed. They're both clearly on the pace tonight. We'll see whether or not that continues into the race. But yeah, Kieran Harrison will be on the pole position for this first race, and he will be looking for his 6th victory of the season so far. He's also got the best race 1 average of any driver. His average race 1 finishing position this season is 3rd, which is quite a bit better than anybody else, but he hasn't got the best race 2 average. We'll get into that a bit later on. There's some interesting stats with average finishes for our championship runners. Here's how they'll line up, though, for the first of 2 20-minute races tonight here at Barcelona. Kieran Harrison, the points leader, on pole with Maxson Ramstein alongside him. Then the 3rd and 2nd place men in the championship, respectively, Matthew Turnbull and Nicole Foggy, row 2. Jason Cooper, winner last time, is on form again tonight. He qualifies 5th alongside Josh Malin, the top pro, on row 3. David Baker and Adrian Campfield on row 4. A good effort that from Campfield in his debut, whilst Johnny Brandon and Jack Sedgwick round out the top 10. Then it is Bobby Thompson in 11th with Mark Fletcher for company on row 6. Ty Keveth and Lewis Goodway are on row 7 together, ahead of Freddie Hewitt and Mike Epps. Then Dave Newsham, Ashley Beard, Callum Newsham and Lane O'Connor will round out the top 20. Outside the top 20, it's the 11th row for Lee Horn and Jamie Dorey, the 2 next-gen teammates, ahead of Ricky Collard and Ollie Wayne. Then Max Coates and Chris Slater, whilst Marlon Menden and Sean Hollenby round out the 28 starters. A good grid of cars with us once again for tonight's 2 races around the Barcelona Grand Prix, historic Grand Prix circuit. This fast-flowing, and as you can see from this head-on shot down the pit straight, very wide circuit, which means that the run down to turn 1, which is a very, very long run as well, is going to promote lots of opportunities overtaking. The red lights are on them. Let's go racing. Round number 13 of the Power Max Racing eSeries. Kieran Harrison on pole position. The championship leader makes a good getaway from pole. He will lead the field down to turn number 1. Turnbull's away well as well from row number 2. Pulls alongside Maxson Ramstein as they head down the hill into the braking zone. The blue car on the right is Turnbull. The black and yellow on the inside is Maxson Ramstein, and Turnbull will be very, very late on the brakes to try and get 2nd place away from him. Turns in, leaves him room, and Turnbull will go through. Foggy is still 4th. Jason Cooper 5th. Josh Malin in 6th, so the only person gaining ground in the first few rows is Matthew Turnbull, and the man who has not had a victory since the very first race of the season at Donington Park is in 2nd and immediately challenging for the lead, because running wide out of turn 3 was Kieran Harrison. He has to go defensive into turn 4. Matthew Turnbull looking really racy here at the start of race number 1.
It's what he needs to do though, and as we see talking a race, see Nickel Foggy going down the inside of Maxson Ramstein later on the brakes, and he is going to make that move stick. Ramstein will try and fight it round the outside, but Foggy is going to have the run. Sounds like a little bit of contact behind, but what we're looking at is battle for 3rd, and Foggy's going to clear him before they get into the corner, and he does. So well done there for Nickel Foggy, up into 3rd place.
Ramstein may have worked well with Harrison in qualifying, but he now finds 2 cars between himself and Kieran Harrison. We're on board with one of them, Matthew Turnbull, who is in 2nd place, breathing down the neck of the championship leader. We're heading down to the hairpin at turn 10 now. This could be an overtaking opportunity, but it's not as big a braking zone now as it would be if we were on the tighter version of this corner. So actually they stay in line. Harrison leading, Turnbull 2nd, Foggy 3rd. The top 3 in the championship, but they're not in championship order. It's that blue Adrian Flux car in 2nd that really needs to start scoring the points here. He arrives here at Barcelona on 148 points, which is 38 points behind the championship leader Kieran Harrison. He gained some points back in that 2nd race at Snetterton last week, where Harrison had the penalty and Turnbull was able to finish in 6th position, but a race victory is what he really needs. It's hard to believe that Turnbull was our first victor of the season back at Donington, has not been back on the top step since. Side by side battling behind me, while Bobby Thompson here we're seeing coming across the start-finish line in 9th place, but the real battle going on behind him there for 10th position between Lewis Goodway, Dave Newsham, and newcomer to the championship, Adrian Campfield.
Campfield's had lost a few places from the start, lost 4 places, but it's this. Oh, it's Carvet going over the rumble strip as well. That'd be a slowdown. But as you see here, Dave Newsham right on the back of Lewis Goodway. What we also saw down the straight is something new from this build of iRacing that we've had today, is that you can see them actually flashing the lights at each other now. So we could see some proper touring car tactics with the old headlight flashing.
Always question whether that works, but drivers do tell me that that will play on your mind. If you're under pressure and the driver behind starts flashing those headlights, it's very, very easy to get distracted by it. But these drivers, I'm sure, are well used to that particular trick, especially those that have been racing in the real world for so many years. Following David Baker here, then, he sits in 6th position there in the middle of this nice little battle, actually. The purple and white car in front of him is Jason Cooper, and right behind him, all over him, in fact, Jack Sedgwick, who's up 3 positions from where he started. Jack Sedgwick there in the Z-Cars number 10 machine, started 10th, he's up to 7th, so we've seen quite a bit of shuffling actually in the opening lap and a half. Things are starting to settle down now, but Sedgwick has a look at the inside, has more than a look, has a real lunge up the inside of David Baker, and that was an absolute peach of a move. He got the car stopped nicely for the apex as well, despite the fact he braked so much later than the car in front. That, Dan, is how you overtake into that hairpin.
Yeah, going through Lecac, so that's a fantastic overtake. You previously said on the last lap round there that you got to do well to make a move there. Jack Sedgwick must have been listening to you. Very brave and late on the inside, no contact made, and that really was what you call a picture book move, because he made it stick and he was able to keep the position on the uphill climb as well. But at the front of the field, Kieran Harrison and Matthew Turnbull, the gap is 2.5 tenths to get in the slipstream, but the fastest man on that last lap was Nickel Foggy in 3rd place at 154.347.
To your point that you made at the end of qualifying, he does seem to be a better racer than qualifier, and that's not necessarily a bad thing, especially in a wide open circuit like this where you can overtake. You know, you only score 1 point for qualifying on pole position. That's the only point on offer during a qualifying session. There are way more points, more than 20 points on offer for winning a race. So that is where you really need to be on it. Jack Sedgwick's on it though, isn't he? He is on an absolute mission, not happy with just taking 6th place. He now wants to move into the top 5 at the expense, potentially, of the race 2 winner from a week ago at Snetterton, Jason Cooper. And don't forget that Sedgwick is involved in this fight for 4th position in the championship. He arrives here at Barcelona in 5th place in the points, just 4 points behind Maxson Ramstein, and he can see Ramstein escaping with the leaders. So that's why Sedgwick really wants to get a move on here. He's not really keen to settle in behind Cooper here. He's also fighting Cooper for that 4th place in the championship too. So that would be an important overtake if he can make it. And we're heading down now, Dan, to the place where he made such a brilliant overtake a lap ago.
Down to Lecac, so they go again. Is Kieran Harrison, Matthew Turnbull and Nickel Foggy very close together. Maxson Ramstein is pulling away. What we saw last week, though, was that Kieran Harrison was able to pull away at the start, and he was able to maintain that lead, and he's not having that sort of race today. He's going to have to race through it, I think, this one, because Matthew Turnbull and Foggy are not getting away from Kieran Harrison, no matter how hard he tries. I don't know if a slipstream may be playing a bit of an effect on that as well. The gap seems to be quite steady, 4 tenths at the beginning of the straight, but by the time they get to the braking zone, that halves. That's just how much that slipstream can be. And of course, Nicole Foggy, with him having, there you go, he's got a slipstream of both of them, puts in another fastest lap, 153.861, and having a double slipstream is really going to be helping Foggy here.
Is worth a bonus point as well, so these fastest laps all start to rack up too. That could be significant come the end of the season. Right now, of course, he would be losing ground to Harrison in the championship, but every bonus point he can get will help him. Now, this is Freddie Hewitt, who I think it's safe to say has been in the wars. That car is not terrifically Audi shaped anymore, is it? He's running down in 24th position, trying his best here to close in on Ricky Collard, who himself had some dramas. Ricky Collard, we believe, was in a collision with Callum Newsham a lap ago down at the corner. They just went through turn 1. Now, it looks as though he came out of that better than Callum, though. Callum is in the pit lane undergoing repairs, along with Chris Slater as well. So 2 drivers who are still in the pit lane, but these are a few of the drivers further down the order, and you can sort of see the reason they're that far down the order when you look at the state of their bodywork. They've been involved in some early collisions, which is easily done, given how close the competition can be. With the 5th place battle now, there's still 5th place for Jason Cooper there, so Sedgwick hasn't found a way through, and the danger now, Dan, is that if he spends too much longer behind Cooper, kind of gets stuck running at that car's pace, don't you? When you've got the speed, you really want to try and make a decisive move quickly. Once you sit behind them for too long, the chances of you actually getting through start to get less and less.
And when you're in a pack like that as well, the guys behind you are plotting on your downfall and having to get back past, especially David Baker, who had that move done to him by Cedric down the inside at the Kaisa corner. He won't be wanting to settle for that, so he'll be trying to plan a way through. So the position that Cedric is in at the moment, he's sort of in that area where he's really trying to put pressure on Cooper, but behind he's got cars also in close attention. But speaking of close attention, these top 4 are closer than ever, and Turnbull is much closer than he was to Harrison on the previous lap. Harrison moving to the right to try and break the slipstream, and he hasn't been doing that previously, so it obviously feels a bit more pressure on this lap, and they're really getting close in. Nicole Foggy, though, making a move. They're showing his nose, maybe not so much a move, but showing that he's there, and Nicole Foggy in 3rd place, looking to try and do whatever he can, maybe to try and force an opening, distracting Matthew Turnbull in front of him. But Matthew Turnbull himself is putting Kieran Harrison under a lot of pressure, and I think this is one of the closest battles between these 2 we've seen all season.
Yeah, absolutely. And with the championship implications here, there's so much on the line in this battle, and they are almost pushing each other round the circuit. Round turn 4, they go down into turn 5. This is one of the best overtaking opportunities, but you've got to be brave, and Harrison saw it coming anyway. Took an early apex there. That might slow him down on the exit, though, and the more defensive driving he does, the more he's working those tyres, the more he's using the brakes up, and the less speed he might have come the end of the race. But they're all pretty much in the same boat. They're all trying to attack, and they're all trying to defend from each other as well. They all hop over the curb there through the chicane. Uphill they go once again into this daunting right-hander at turn 8, and still no advantage really to anyone here. Harrison looks as though he's struggling to hang on, but I think a lot of that is down to the fact that he is punching the hole in the air for everyone else to follow in. The drivers behind with the slipstream, it can sometimes be a bit flattering, that, can't it? It can look as though the drivers that are behind are way, way quicker than the race leader. In reality, the slipstream is the thing that's keeping them bunched together.
You see that not just in these touring cars, but you see it also sort of in your single-seaters, even low-power, in MX-5s as well. The slipstream is really important, and it's stopping Kieran Harrison from pulling away, I think, against these drivers, really, because we've seen in the previous rounds, Harrison had been able to pull away where they've been fighting on the early laps. Last week at Snetterton was a prime example. They were fighting behind, and that gave Harrison the chance to pull out a gap. But the top 4 in the championship are running in the top 4 places. There is no coincidence, but behind, it looks like Jack Cedric has got a good run on Jason Cooper.
Oh, and Nicole Foggy's having a look at the inside of Turnbull as well. I thought that was going to end in disaster. This one won't, though. That's a nice move again up the inside, but is it going to work? Because Cooper's got the inside line for turn 2, and actually it could be Cedric that gets muscled out onto the marbles, fights for his position back in line, and they stay in the same order. But this was some brilliant racing going on. We've got these 2 quartets of cars. We've got 4 drivers fighting for the lead, and then 4 drivers fighting for 5th position. Cooper, Sedgwick, Baker, and Josh Malin there in the DMS Technologies car goes around the outside turn number 4. It's a long way round there on the dirty side of the road as well. He can't go right round the outside. Tries the switchback, but now the next corner is a left-hander, and that again favours David Baker on the inside line. It goes to show, though, how tricky it can be to overtake someone going the same speed as you. Malin thought he saw a gap at the inside, but the door is rather firmly closed in his face there by David Baker. He hangs on to 7th place for the time being, but Josh Malin looks anxious to get on with this now. He's already leading the pro class, but Josh Malin is another of those drivers like Sedgwick, like Ramstein, like Cooper, waiting to be 4th place in the championship, and right now he's behind a lot of the drivers that he's fighting for in the points. So Josh Malin, another driver that really would quite like to make some progress here.
He's also got Bobby Thompson catching him up as well in the pro as well. Bobby Thompson in 9th place, trying to bring Lewis Goodway with him as well, and that gap has been coming down slightly. But what we've seen through these battles as well is a multitude of different lines that you can take around this circuit and still not lose time. As we saw there, Malin took a much wider line going through the Repsol corner there, turn 4, and he was in a position when they went down the straight towards the worst chicane where he was really close to getting past. So it seems like Barcelona's a good circuit for sort of varying up your lines as well. If you can't make one line work, try a different one.
All about momentum, isn't it? Carrying the speed off the corner, whereas Jack Sedgwick seems to like carrying the speed into them. He's up the inside again of Jason Cooper. This is going to be an action replay of what happened a lap ago. He draws alongside, but then the next corner goes the wrong way for him. He's on the outside line for turn 2, and once again has to settle back in line. So how many more times can you try that move before it pays off, I wonder? Meanwhile, Matthew Turnbull really applying the pressure again to Kieran Harrison. So far has placed that car in exactly the right position on every occasion, but I don't know, there's a sense of inevitability about this now. They do look, the drivers behind him, they do look a bit quicker. And here comes Turnbull around the outside into turn number 5. This is a really brave move. He could end up in the gravel if he's not careful. He could leave the door open for Nickel Foggy. He just gets back in line every time he goes offline here to try and make a move. He is vulnerable to attack from the drivers behind. Speaking of the drivers behind, I think we're about to have that change for 4th. Sedgwick was up the inside firmly of Jason Cooper. They're still side by side. Cooper once again finds the inside line through the right-hander. Into turn 8 they go. And this is not a place you want to be stuck on the outside. That's exactly where Sedgwick finds himself, though. Keeps his foot in it. They leave each other just enough room. Fabulous racing. And finally, Sedgwick has the inside for the hairpin, side by side at the front of the field as well. Round the outside goes Matthew Turnbull. Foggy's on the inside line too. The top 3 in the championship leaning on each other halfway through this first race of the night. And still, somehow, Harrison retains the race lead. How on earth is he keeping them behind him, Dan?
It's fantastic driving all along, and they're making our producer Graham work as well. 2 great battles, and he doesn't know where to look, and it's just fantastic racing. Harrison somehow is managing to keep these drivers behind, and you've got to think as well, the patience will start running thin soon because they've been stuck behind him for a long time. But Nickel Foggy may make the best of the situation here because he's right behind Matthew Turnbull, and I think if anything, Nickel Foggy may actually be able to potentially make a move here. He's going to stick to the outside. Turnbull's going to defend to the inside, but at the moment, Nickel Foggy looks like the man who's going to make that move. And then we've also got Sedgwick, who has got past Cooper, but it looks like that may switch around again. Cooper is going to try the move that Sedgwick attempted previously. Sedgwick has got through, so Jack Sedgwick finally makes that move stick. He's up into 5th, and there's also no change ahead. But Josh Malin, speaking of change, looking to get down the inside of David Baker for 7th place. Maxson Ramstein not racing that pack as well ahead. And Josh Malin is going to gain a position here against David Baker, but David Baker will have the inside line as they slow down for the next corner.
You quite literally don't know where to look, do you? Fantastic battles left, right and centre. This one for 4th place has been raging since the start of the race, basically. And it is going to be Sedgwick, as you say, who finally unlocks the door and finds a way into 4th place. Side by side for 9th as well, not to be outdone. Bobby Thompson and Lewis Goodway scrapping away. Don't forget, whoever finishes 10th in this race will start on pole for race 2. And these two are both being caught, I would say, by Mike Epps behind them, who's 11th. So Mike Epps, the black car there in the background, in 11th place. If he can overtake one more car, get himself onto the front row for race number 2 later on. The leaders, though, they're not worrying about race number 2 just yet because they've still got about a quarter of race number 1 to go. And Kieran Harrison so far has had answers to all of the questions that Matthew Turnbull has been asking of him. I have to say, though, that Turnbull is going to struggle to overtake Harrison here as long as he has Foggy and Ramstein on his tail, because every time he steps out to make a move, Foggy is there sticking the nose in the inside where it's not wanted. So how does Turnbull go about making this move without risking losing 2nd place? It's hard, isn't it?
Also, Harrison looks very strong on the second bit of the faster section. You see Turnbull is about 2/10 behind as they go through the first bit of Europe car. But as they go in towards New Holland, the final corner, he seems to find 2/10 on Turnbull as well. So Harrison maybe just a little bit better on that section of the track. And that is a crucial section on the run to the straight. As we see that battle again in that 5th place battle. And Jason Cooper made his another position here. He's lost one to Jack Sedgwick. And David Baker is going to hold that car down the inside. So David Baker and Jason Cooper going side by side through Renault. And it'll be interesting to see which one of them is able to make the move as they break down towards Repsol corner. You see the Repsol bridge there. The Repsol corner now is here. And David Baker down the inside. Jason Cooper hung out to dry. And Josh Maiden can have a piece of the action now as well. So Jason Cooper at the moment losing place after place.
All 4 of these drivers are covered by just 7 points in the championship for 4th place, or 5th place actually in the championship they're fighting for specifically, with Ramstein 4th in the points, and it's not working out well at the moment for Cooper. That's another place lost to David Baker. Look how close Turnbull is to Harrison, and now Harrison's starting to defend into places that you would not normally defend into, but this is my point. Every time this happens, it backs Turnbull up into Nickel Foggy, who is waiting in the wings to capitalise if this all goes wrong. Down into turn number 10, the hairpin they go once again. Is there going to be a move made on the outside? They're 3 abreast for the race lead. On the inside is Harrison, on the outside Foggy and Turnbull stuck in the middle, and yet again they come out of the corner in exactly the same order in which they went into it. Surely this can't last. So far it's been clean as well, and I'm doubting whether that'll last right now, because I sense some frustration here, particularly on the part of Matthew Turnbull. He clearly feels he's quicker than Harrison. He just can't find a way through.
Nickel Foggy very quick as well, but as you say, the frustration for Turnbull, oh, bit of gravel there for Foggy, that's not going to help his exit. But as you see there, Kieran Harrison going to the right, trying to break the slipstream for Matthew Turnbull. Matthew Turnbull, though, actually has more pressure from Nicole Foggy than he has to putting it on Harrison. But Foggy did well, though, just restrained from going down the inside. There's probably going to be 2 laps to go at the end of this one. So what we'll see now is Foggy there tries very close on Matthew Turnbull. They cross the line, I think, with the next lap will be the following lap. I think we're actually now in the penultimate lap of the race. So anything that's going to happen is going to have to happen pretty quickly. And I'm pretty sure that these drivers involved know that as well. What's interesting, though, is that group behind must be able to see what's going on ahead. And if they'd worked together, they may have actually been able to get a place in this as well. But they're too busy having their own little scrap for 5th place. And that's really been enthralling as well. But Foggy there, down the inside on Matthew Turnbull. And if Foggy Foggy's not going to get the run into the next corner, but this is fantastic action here, these 4, and it's really hard to predict even at this stage what's going to happen, and we're a lap and a half to go.
It is quite literally bumper to bumper. Touring car racing isn't exactly what we've come to expect from the Power Max Racing eSeries. There's a little bit of contact there, I think, between Foggy and Turnbull, but Turnbull is really good through this section, through the chicane and up through that quick right-hander at turn number 9. He gains on Harrison, he pulls away from Foggy, but he just can't do anything with him once we get into the final sector. The hairpin at turn 10 we go again. Still, car number 9 leads the way. Kieran Harrison, by the way, has now led over 100 laps this season. He was on 97 laps led coming into this race. He's now the first driver to get into triple figures as far as laps led are concerned. You only score that bonus point for leading a lap once, though, per race. He doesn't score 100 bonus points for that. If only he did, he'll be thinking. But no, he has got that bonus point for leading a lap. He's the only driver that's led a lap in this race, just like he was the only driver to lead a lap in race 1 at Snetterton a week ago. But he's really having to work hard to keep hold of the lead. Takes a very early defensive move to the right-hand side as we go on to what should be the final lap of racing here in race number 1 at the circuit to Barcelona, Catalunya. Kieran Harrison leads the way. Matthew Turnbull 2nd, Nickel Foggy 3rd, and Maxime Ramstein 4th. It could still be any one of these 4 drivers that wins it. Real question, though, is how much longer can Harrison keep his defences up? He's done a brilliant job so far, and he's now only got to hang on for just under 1 more lap.
Harrison didn't have the best of starts to the lap. He went a little bit wide in that turn 1 and 2 section, and that's allowed Turnbull to be closer than ever, as right onto the back bumper there of Kieran Harrison as they go through Repsol, and Nickel Foggy also right behind Turnbull. It's been a bit of a stalemate so far, because everyone's tried to make a move, but no one's been able to really make that decisive move since Nickel Foggy took 3rd place, as we see the the battle's still raging on with half a lap to go. They pulled out 5 seconds, and in fact, there's been a change in that second pack as well. David Baker in 5th, has been overtaken by Sedgwick, so they're switching places behind. But obviously, our attention here is at this battle for the lead, because this is the last chance for Turnbull as they come out through Campster Corner on the run to the left-hander at Lacagsa for the final time.
Turnbull really needs this victory, especially since it's Harrison that is on course for the win right now, but there are limited overtaking opportunities left. That was possibly his last genuine chance to throw on up the inside, unless he forces a mistake out of Kieran Harrison. Has a look to the inside here, 3 more corners to go. That doesn't work, and now he's got to watch his mirrors because Nickel Foggy closes back in again. 4 cars as one with 2 corners to go, and it looks as though Kieran Harrison somehow is going to do this. He comes into the final corner now, and the championship leader is going to extend his championship margin. He was 6 points clear after qualifying. That gap will go into double figures again now, though, because Kieran Harrison yet again takes the victory in the Power Max Racing eSeries. That's his 6th win of the season, by far more. In fact, it's double more than anybody else has had so far. Turnbull 2nd, Foggy 3rd, Ramstein 4th, and then Jack Sedgwick hangs on for 5th, just ahead of David Baker 6th, Jason Cooper 7th, Josh Malin still down in 8th, wasn't able to make the ground up that he would have hoped. Bobby Thompson is 9th, and Mike Epps got 10th place. Something happened to Lewis Goodway. He dropped down to 12th towards the end, and Mike Epps will be on pole position provisionally for race number 2, and I think we've seen that earlier on in the season as well. So Mike Epps could become the next pro driver maybe to win a round of the championship. He'll certainly be starting from the best possible place to do so, with pole position for race number 2. That was breathless stuff. Fantastic racing from the Power Max Racing eSeries. Max Coates there, we didn't really mention all race, but he was down in 19th and had a good drive, actually. He gained 6 positions, one of the biggest movers in that first race. But Kieran Harrison started on pole, he led every lap, and he won the race, which makes it sound like that was quite a dull and processional affair. But, Dan, it was anything but. That was a top-draw defensive drive, that, from Harrison to keep the ball behind.
We've seen in the last 2 weeks completely contrasting races from Kieran Harrison, and really just show what a fantastic driver he is, because last week at Snetterton we saw that he had the lead and pulled away, and this time he really had to fight for it. A real dogged and determined drive from Kieran Harrison today.
Yes, indeed. So here is how they finished the race then. Kieran Harrison with his 6th victory of the season. Matthew Turnbull in 2nd and Nickel Foggy 3rd. So both of those two gained a position, of course, at the start at the expense of Maxime Ramstein, who ends up in 4th. Then the next pack of cars was led by Jack Sedgwick in 5th, David Baker in 6th, Jason Cooper in 7th, and Josh Malin 8th. Bobby Thompson is 9th and 2nd in the pros, because Malin, of course, was our pro winner. We'll try and have a chat with our pro winner after this race if we can as well. Mike Epps rounding out the top 10. So the top 3 pro drivers were 8th, 9th and 10th respectively. So they will be at the front of the grid now for race number 2. So that could be an interesting side story going into the second race. Dave Newsham was 11th, Lewis Goodway 12th, Johnny Brandon 13th, 14th for Mark Fletcher, and Lee Horn drove well, gained 6 positions to get into the points with 15th. Jamie Dory just missed out on the points despite gaining 6th position from where he started. Ty Keveth was 17th. Ricky Collard 18th. Another good drive for him. Max Coates likewise in 19th, with Ollie Wayne rounding out the top 20. Then it was Freddie Hewitt, Ashley Beard and Sean Hollenby in 23rd. And then we lost, unfortunately, to the pit lane. Lane O'Connor, Marlon Mendon, Adrian Campfield. That's a shame. He was driving really well inside the top 10 before clearly the incident took him out of contention. Chris Slater also retired to the pits, as did Newsham. And Harrison then has taken the race victory, his 6th win of the year, and he also was the only driver to lead a lap in that race, so he moves on to provisionally 207 points. Nickel Foggy, who was 2nd in the championship, finished 3rd, 15, plus the bonus point for fastest lap. So that puts him, by my reckoning, to 196. So I now have it at 11 points, the difference between the two of them. Of course, Turnbull was in 2nd, so he gets 17 points. So he'll still be there or thereabouts, Dan. I don't think we can count him out of the championship hunt just yet, but as we've said a few times during that race, Matthew Turnbull really needs a win, and he really needs it now.
We saw last week in race 2 how unpredictable it is, though. It only takes one of these drivers to have a similar issue to what Kieran Harrison had last week in the early stages of the race, and it'll blow things open again. So I think really these top 3 are, and also Maxime Ramstein in 4th. He's proved that he can keep up with these drivers. Maybe not had the best of luck previously, but Maxime Ramstein and fourth, a good drive from him. But as we've been saying all season, it really is unpredictable. And in these second races, anything can really happen.
Indeed they can. And don't go anywhere, guys, because we've still got that second race coming up in a few minutes' time. The reverse grid races have been thrillers right the way through the season. I don't think this one's going to be any different. Before that, though, let's hear from our podium finishers, shall we? We will start with our race victor, Kieran Harrison, who is on the top step of the podium for the 6th time this year with Ed May.
Yeah, Kieran, great result for getting, obviously, a pole position in qualifying. Led every single lap, but from those stats, you might think it was a quiet and peaceful race, but we saw you at the front, battling nose to tail with the likes of Matthew Turnbull and Nicole Foggy. What a great race, Kieran.
Yeah, it was good to win it in the end, but my God, it was close. The four of us nose to tail the entire race. I kept making a couple of mistakes in turn one, and every time the cars behind dropped back a tiny bit, battling on their own, I gave it back. So not a moment to breathe in that race, but I held on. So it's good for the championship. I'll take it.
Yeah, the guys were beside themselves in the commentary box, and I was right there with them. I was watching you go around making these defensive maneuvers absolutely perfectly, and we've seen how you can defend. Obviously, starting in 10th place, will you be able to, do you think, attack and make your way up the order in this second race?
So I'm hoping it goes a bit better than last week. Race 2 had a contact on the first lap, but yeah, I think it'll be okay on this track. Although it's wide, it's kind of difficult to pass because when everybody has the slipstream, it neutralizes the effect. But we'll see what I can do. I'm hoping to move forward.
Yeah, we'll be hoping that you can have a nice clean fight to the end of this championship and keep it alive and keep it exciting for us, Kieran. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
And Harrison then gets another race victory, extends his championship lead, but Matthew Turnbull came home in 2nd place, and that means that he's closing in a little bit more now on the top 2 in the championship. Matt is on the podium with Ed.
Yeah, cracking race there, Matt. You obviously managed to capitalise a little bit on Maxim's poor start, and from there on, you got into 2nd place and never looked back. But you obviously had to try and attack and defend at the same time. So, what a crazy race from your perspective, I'll imagine.
Yeah, I definitely had to look back for sure. Every time I tried to just put a bit of pressure on Kieran, Nicole was there, here, there, everywhere, left and right. So, yeah, tough one. I don't know. Maybe we could have had Kieran on another day, but I think Nicole was too quick and too fast for any of that business anyway.
Yeah, very, very good defensive drive, and obviously you're going to have to try and fight your way up through the order now with Nicole in front of you and Kieran right behind you. So you're going to be yet in another sandwich between two very, very fast guys. What do you think your prospects will be going into this second race?
To say every week, it's just keep out of trouble really as best you can. I had a bit of a dodgy first lap last time, but yeah, if we can just keep it on the black stuff and make it to the end, that'll be good enough for me.
Yeah, definitely, Matt. And we'll be wishing you the very best of luck. That's Matt Turnbull coming home in 2nd place. Great job, Matt.
That's nice.
Turnbull then 2nd in the race. 2nd in the championship is still Nicole Foggy, but 11 points off the top now, having finished 3rd place in that race. How does he feel about that, Ed?
Yeah, I'm with Nicole now, and surely you're going to be happy. You were 5 points behind coming into this round, and now you're set up. Got a few positions between you and Kieran coming into this reverse grid race, and I'll tell you what, you're going to be hoping, I guess, for a nice repeat of Snetterton, maybe.
Hoping indeed. It was pretty tough trying to pass again. You know, Matt had the toll from Kieran, so it's quite tough making a pass. And then I was trying around the outside, pushed it too hard coming out of the 3rd last corner or something, and went on the sand. So it's quite tough passing here. So, but we'll see what happens in the next race anyway.
Yeah, you did seem to have quite a good getaway from the line as well. Is that something you might have been working on? And hopefully for this second race, do you think that's going to play into your hands?
Not been working on it. I mean, I just get lucky sometimes or unlucky, as I did. I think I got really unlucky at Oulton Park, got a terrible start. So you just got to, I should probably practice my starts more. But yeah, there's a certain knack to just, how much tire spin is acceptable. And then when to, obviously you want to change up to 2nd and then 3rd quite early. So it's quite hard judging that. So hopefully I get a good one in the next race.
I wasn't going to admit to it, but I was thinking of Oulton Park when I mentioned that. But it's nice to hear that you're getting good results now, Nicole, and hopefully you can take this championship fight right down to the final round. That's Nicole Foggy coming home in 3rd place.
Hope so, man. Thanks very much.
Foggy then in third position, and the final interview we'll do, I think, before we move on to race number 2, is our pro class winner, who was once again Josh Malin. He finished down in 8th position in that race, just ahead of his nearest pro opposition, Ed.
Yeah, with Josh Malin. Josh, that was a good fight you managed to have coming up through the order, managed to take a few positions from your start, and following that big pack that you were in, it looked like action from start to finish for you, Josh.
Yeah, it was. I mean, everyone was fighting in front of me. I was just sort of trying to pick my moves, but I couldn't really sort of make them stick. So I held on to 8th place, and I'm happy with that. It gives me 3rd for the reverse grid. That's alongside Bobby and Mr. Epps as well. So that's going to be should be interesting.
Yeah, it's great you mentioned that, because I was actually just going to come on to that. You've got another couple of pro drivers of the likes of Bobby Thompson and Mike Epps in front of you. Do you think you'll be able to get the measure of them off the line and maybe give us a show? And I'm guessing you're going to be hoping to come home with a race victory.
I would very much hope so, but I am very conscious of the boys behind me. All of the guys in front of me are sim drivers, and they are ridiculously quick, and they know how to get these things off the line properly. I, on the other hand, it's mainly luck. So it's very hard to get a good start. So I'll try my best, but we'll have to wait and see what happens.
We'd be pleased to know it's not just you feeling the same thing. We were just talking to Nicole Foggy earlier, and he was saying the exact same thing about getting the starts right. It's just a matter of rolling the dice, really. But we'll be wishing you the best into this second race, and hoping for a good result for you, Josh.
No worries. Thank you very much, Ed. Speak to you later.
Cheers.
Josh Malin, then the pro winner. We're going to give you one more interview, I think, Ed, before we move on, because it would be nice, I think, to speak to our pole sitter for race number 2, because I can see he's waiting outside the comms box. Let's drag in Mike Epps, shall we? Who finished in 10th place, and Ed, he gained 6 positions in that race, and that was good enough to give him pole for race 2.
Yeah, thank you guys for waiting so patiently. I was watching you down the race. You were sort of hanging around that sort of 16-17 marker, and then all of a sudden, through the towards the end of the race, you went on a massive charge. Was that your perspective as well there, Mike?
Yeah, I think I just started to find some pace, because I got stuck in because someone was trying to jump off a bridge or something. I think, God knows, I was on the way back from Snetterton today, doing a bit of real life work and trying to get back for 7 o'clock practice, and I'm sat at 5 to 7. So I think it was just finding the pace, boys.
Well, we were definitely glad that you're here with us and able to get back in time. And internet permitting, obviously, we know that you've had a few issues previously. You're going to be starting on pole position and coming into race 2. You're in the pound seats for a good race victory here, Mike.
Yeah, hopefully. That last race was a kind of get a benchmark and start to understand how to go quick consistently, and sort of found it at the end. I made an extreme dive for 10th place, because I actually made the lap and got shafted back out of it, BTCC. So I gave me a split. I thought, I'm having that. So P1 for this race. But yeah, internet issues have always been a problem with iRacing at the moment. It seems like I've got some sort of instability in my connection that causes my car to glitch and jump around, and sometimes even crash and then appear back online. So hopefully that doesn't happen too much. But Virgin Media Racing don't seem to be the best combination for me here in Northampton at the minute. So,
well, we'll have fingers crossed and everything, hoping that you can give us a good fight and that we won't have any outside influences on your race too, Mike. Thank you very much for joining us here.
Same. Cheers, boys. Thanks for having me on, and always here to entertain, as I always say. So.
Cheers, Mike.
Certainly be doing that, Mike. Thanks very much for joining us. A no-nonsense attitude, I think, from Mike Epps going into that first race, and he'll do well to keep hold of that attitude, I think, into race 2, because he will be on pole position with Bobby Thompson, his British Touring Car Championship sparring partner, alongside. That is coming your way in just a few minutes. We're going to take a very, very short break. Do not go anywhere, though, because the second race, the reverse grid race, is a few moments away. Welcome back to Barcelona, everybody, and the Power Max Racing eSeries race number 2 of the night is only a couple of minutes away. The driver's just in a quick practice session. Before we jump into our second race, though, we've got one person that we do want to have a quick little chat with. He's been racing with us for the last few rounds in the PMR eSeries, and that is Ricky Collard. Ricky, thanks for taking some time out of your evening to join us. You've had as eventful a night as ever, I see, in that first race. You're never far from the action, are you?
Well, I think it shows how important the qualifying is. I definitely made so many mistakes of qualifying lap. I took some advice from my dad and made as many as I could. Started at the back, didn't quite get a collard start, and yeah, the rest was just fun and games.
I did see a comment or a screenshot that was sent to us by Si that you'd qualified about as well as your dad would have done for that previous race. But if we know anything about collards, you can race, can't you? You're not afraid to get your elbows out and make progress. So what's the prospect of doing that in this second race, do you think?
Definitely. I think I've raced around Barcelona quite a bit, so I do understand the track quite well. It's a track that I like. The PMR series has chosen some fantastic circuits that we will get to drive on. And you know, I was just sort of getting the hang of the car. I was top 10 in practice. Then, like I said, made a mistake in qualifying, and then I had a bit of a sort of scruffy race, which wasn't ideal. But I think we could be in for a good second race because, like I said, we've got a reverse grid now, so not the whole field, just the top 10 are going to be reversed, if I'm right in saying. Yes. But it should be a good battle now. I'm excited.
Stuff. Well, we're looking forward to seeing how you get on. We're going to have to let you go because you've got 3 seconds to get ready. But best of luck for this second race, mate.
Cheers, guys. Thank you very much.
Ricky Collard has been a great supporter of the PMR eSeries, and although at times things haven't quite gone to plan for him, he's still really been really enjoying his racing and a real cheerleader for the championship. So thank you, Ricky. We'll wish him luck for this second race of the night, which is out to get underway. Here is how they'll line up. Remember, the top 10 finishers from race 1 are reversed to form the grid for race 2. So it's Mike Epps and Bobby Thompson on row 1. If that isn't going to create action into turn 1, then nothing will. Josh Malin, the pro championship leader, is third ahead of Jason Cooper, who won the reverse grid race a week ago. Then it's David Baker and Jack Sedgwick on row 3, Maxime Ramstein and Nickel Foggy on row 4. Nickel really needs to try and undo the damage done from that first race where he finished a couple of places behind the points lead Harrison. Turnbull and Kieran Harrison himself share the 5th row. Then it's Dave Newsham and Lewis Goodway on row 6, Johnny Brandon and Mark Fletcher on the 7th row ahead of Lee Horn and Jamie Dorey, Ty Keveth and Max Coates with Ollie Wayne and Freddie Hewitt rounding out the top 20. Then it's Ashley Beard, Ricky Collard starting down in 22nd, but with high hopes for this race. He lines up just ahead of Lane O'Connor and Marlon Mendon. And then some of those that didn't finish race 1, Adrian Campfield, Chris Slater and Callum Newsham at the back. Here we go then, the second race, round 14 of the championship. Mike Epps and Bobby Thompson on row number 1. The lights go out, away they go. Good start made by both of them, I think. Yeah, looks as though Epps will just get across the nose of Bobby Thompson, who goes to the outside. But Malin is away better than both of them. There's nowhere for the youngster to go, though. So it's going to be side by side with Epps on the inside. On the outside, Bobby Thompson. Here comes Jason Cooper up the inside in the white and purple car as well. This is going to get very tight through turn number 1. It's going to be Epps that leads. Thompson second. Malin side by side with Cooper for third. And Sedgwick has got David Baker alongside him again. We saw that throughout race number 1. They've carried on where they left off, but Mike Epps has got the jump. He's got the race lead, but Bobby Thompson is on the inside. He's found a gap going down into turn number 4, and Bobby Thompson might be able to challenge for first position. I think he will be able to. He's late on the brakes. They are still 2 by 2 by 2. It looks like a rolling start here, and yet we're nearly halfway around the first lap. Mike Epps' internet, though, is failing him, and there's a bit of contact as a result. They're 3 abreast now for the race lead. Jason Cooper bails out of it on the outside line, sensibly so, I think. This is terrific racing. There's finally some contact, and poor old Bobby Thompson is the man that ends up getting elbowed into the gravel, and Mike Epps holds on to the race lead.
Great start by Mike Epps. As we saw, he made the launch at the start and able to hold on. He had some fierce pressure there from the likes of Malin, Cooper and Thompson. Very unfortunate that we lost Thompson from that battle. I also saw Max Coates going across the gravel as well, coming out of turn 4, and Mike Epps having some internet issues again there. We do know he has issues with those, but the battle for third place is side by side with Cedric and Cooper. Cedric goes to the inside. He may get a slowdown for that. He's cut across part of the circuit, and that's going on Nickel Foggy to gain a place because it is a slowdown for Cedric. Nickel Foggy, though, is going to be in 4th place if he can get past Cedric. Currently in 5th place. That's the inside line, and there's a car going a little bit sideways. Also, Bobby Thompson using some more places as well, but Nickel Foggy, man on a mission, up into 4th place.
gained 4 positions. Kieran Harrison, though, has gained 3. He's into 7th. Where is Matthew Turnbull? He's still where he started, down in 9th. So Turnbull has not been able to make the progress that his fellow championship challengers have.
A big crash in the background there as well. It looked like Ricky Collard involved, Marlon Mendon and Adrian Campfield as well. Wheel flying off as well. And when the one racing cars have actually been lucky not to hit it. So we've had a bit of an incident at the final corner, but at the front it is Michael Epps leading with Jason Cooper in 2nd place. Josh Malin is 3rd, but he's under intense pressure from Nickel Foggy and Jack Sedgwick.
Nickel Foggy can see a chance to win a race here. He will not want to waste any time getting past Josh Malin. He's found a gap, I think, on the inside into turn 4, but Jack Sedgwick will no doubt try and come with him. Foggy then for 3rd place on the inside of Josh Malin, and Josh is sideways. I don't know if there was contact or if he just got loose on the dirty side of the road. Either way, Foggy is through into 3rd. Sedgwick goes with him into 4th, and now Josh Malin is defending busily here from Kieran Harrison, the championship leader, who's on the outside line. Remember how badly wrong the reverse grid race went for him last time at Snetterton. Finished 11th on the road, then was demoted to 14th with a penalty for some contact he had with Johnny Brandon. Harrison, maybe that'll be playing on his mind here. He's going to take it a bit easier, I reckon, in making progress through the field, whereas Nickel Foggy has just decided to go hell for leather here to try and get a race win into 3rd. But look at this, Dan. Jack Sedgwick is trying to take that 3rd place away from him.
Jack Sedgwick having a very good night tonight, and he's putting Foggy back under pressure. Foggy got past him as there goes Josh Manion across the runoff area, and that's a slow down penalty there. So, in fact, it's David Baker with the slow down. But yeah, it's David Baker. Apologies for that. So David Baker it is who has lost time to the slow down. But what we've seen at the start of the race is that Epps and Cooper are now actually starting to pull maybe a little bit of a gap to Nickel Foggy. About a second they pulled out. It's the bigger gap than we saw during the whole race in the first one. So it's Mike Epps and Jason Cooper, but Nickel Foggy, I think it's going to be under intense pressure here from Jack Sedgwick. One of the next gen racing cars they're taking a slow down. That is Lee Horn. So it looks like Lee Horn has had a slow down, just getting back up to speed now. And even down to the bottom half of the top 20, we're seeing some great racing. Bobby Thompson, though, a big loser, started on the front row, now down at 14th, but considerable damage to the front of his Audi TCR.
Racing away there with Max Coates, I noticed as well. He's into the top 15, into the points. This, though, is the fight for the race lead. And look at this. Mike Epps, we mentioned this slightly less than ideal internet situation he's been dealing with. And it looks to me as if he is starting maybe to struggle with some connection issues. Look at the way the car is disappearing and reappearing. That's got to be so distracting for Jason Cooper. He's trying to overtake him here, but at any moment he could end up inside the number 37 car. He gives him a bit of a hoof out the way there through turn number 5. Is he up the inside? Not quite. This is definitely losing them time there. Nickel Foggy in 3rd has the fastest lap, and here comes Kieran Harrison up the inside of Jack Sedgwick, who's had a problem, and Harrison into the back of Josh Malin. Josh Malin's in the gravel, and for the 2nd week in a row, Kieran Harrison is involved in some slightly controversial contact in the reverse grid race. He's got through into 4th, but I am certain, Dan, there will be a conversation about that after the race.
More contact. Jack Sedgwick then, he thought about going onto the grass, thought better of it, but as you say, it's the 2nd week in a row that Kieran Harrison has had contact, and that's a great move by Sedgwick. He went round the outside. It's going to be brave to hold that one round, but Jack Sedgwick's been really racy tonight, and it's great to see. This is what we like to see here in the Power Racing E-Series. Jack Sedgwick really putting pressure on the championship lead, and it's got to be a little bit unnerving for Kieran Harrison. Going back to Mike Epps, that blinking car, as an iRacer myself, I can say very, very distracting and very, very tough, but especially when you're in close proximity like this, because all it takes is that car to disappear and come back in the wrong place. It could cause problems, but Jason Cooper drafting Mike Epps down the straight. They're trying to keep Nickel Foggy behind, but Nickel Foggy goes around the outside of Cooper, up into 2nd place, goes the XBR driver, and make that the lead. Epps makes a mistake going through turn 2. Nickel Foggy has the lead.
Brilliant opportunistic driving from Nickel Foggy. He gets the lead away, and now with them battling behind, he should be able to get his head down and pull away here. Jason Cooper trying to retaliate, trying to get back up the inside of Mike Epps for 2nd place, and all the time Kieran Harrison is catching them as well. Maxine Ramstein having a dive up the inside of Mark Fletcher. There's the replay. He lost the rear, did Epps, going into turn 1. That slowed him up through the corner, and Foggy had already gone round the outside of Jason Cooper into the 1st corner. Brilliant racing there between the lot of them, and they're still side by side. Look at this. You said close quarters, Dan, but people don't park this close together outside their local supermarket, and they're doing well over 100 miles an hour here into the chicane. Oh, sideways for Sedgwick. He's off. He's into the gravel. He rejoins behind Maxine Ramstein. All of this is happening, though, around the championship leader. This has got to be giving Kieran Harrison will be having kittens here. He just wants to get into some clean air, but to do so, he's got to try and break past these two drivers. He takes the bull by the horns, goes up the inside, 3 wide into the hairpin. This could end in disaster if it goes wrong. He's going to get past at least one. He gets past both. He's sideways. There's contact from Sedgwick behind him, and he's gone through. Would you believe it? So Jason Cooper behind him. Would you believe it? Kieran Harrison is into second place. Cooper goes third. That was remarkable stuff, but that was the drive of a championship contender there from Kieran Harrison. He knew that the more time he spent in that hornet's nest, the more chance there was he'd be involved in even more contact and possibly end up off the road himself. He had to make a move. It had to be decisive, and it was. And now he's into second. He can chase after the race leader.
Decisive to a T there from Kieran Harrison. Did exceptionally well to get past both Cooper and Epps, but what this has allowed is Nickel Foggy to build a 1.3 second lead. I don't think it's quite going to be enough to build a slipstream free gap, but behind Mark Fletcher for Ewan Racing in the thick of the action. That's the battle he's having with Epps and Cooper. 3 wide, and there's contact there. Pinball effect for Mark Fletcher, off one, off the other, and again he gets pinballs, and what that is going to allow is Matthew Turnbull to come through out of nowhere. So Matthew Turnbull, we haven't really mentioned him much in this race. He was struggling to gain positions, but he's lucked in with this battling that's going on ahead of him. He's been cool, calm and collected, and he nearly finds himself at the front of this pack.
This is astonishing racing. Mike Epps is still in third place. Matthew Turnbull is the next of the championship contenders trying to get himself out of this mess, and he can't quite break past the 2 black and yellow cars in front of him. Epps then still third. Turnbull side by side with Maxine Ramstein, who's come right back into this out of nowhere. They're side by side through the chicane. They're going to lean on each other, all right up over the curve for Turnbull, and now it's Ramstein on the outside, and here comes Jack Sedgwick. He's still in the position he started in, 6th place, but no longer. He goes up the inside of Ramstein. I think he should take 5th position away here. No, Ramstein fights back. Got a feel for Mark Fletcher as well. He's gained 7 positions in this race. He's having an absolute blinder, but he really got muscled out of line through turn 3, and I think he's carrying some damage as a result of the multiple bits of contact he sustained in the first half of this lap. So too, I fear, Jason Cooper, because they both lost a lot of ground, and they both got slightly deranged bodywork, but well, it's hardly a surprise given how close the racing is here. This is still, I remind you, a fight for 3rd position. Mike Epps looking for his first overall podium finish of the season so far, but he's going to get it. He's got to keep a hungry pack of drivers behind him, and Dan, it's a pack of drivers that gets larger and larger seemingly by the corner.
And some big names in there as well. You've got Dave Newsham, Jason Cooper, David Baker, Mark Fletcher. Oh, here we go. And it's all starting again. Mike Epps having to go very defensive. That internet connection is a bit of a worry for me when you're racing in that sort of close proximity. And the drivers around were probably thinking now as well. Contact between Turnbull and Epps there as well. And this it's a side-by-side. That is Cedric involved as well. So there are 4 or 5 cars here, literally within 10th of each other. The slightest little mistake, we can see a NASCAR style shunt and quite a few cars be affected by it. That's how close they are racing at the moment.
Yeah, I mean, I can't begin to explain how hard it is to do this. I know that people like to say it's only a sim, it's only a game, but this still takes a supreme amount of talent to run this close to each other. Oh, and as I say that, it goes wrong. Mike Epps lost the rear of the car going down into turn 5, and he is off into the gravel, and well, maybe now the cork has been released from the bottle, because he did seem to be the one that was having to drive extra defensively. It's now Turnbull that goes 3rd, Sedgwick 4th, 5th place for Maxine Ramstein, 6th for Mark Fletcher. Dave Newsham's in this battle in 7th, David Baker 8th, Jason Cooper 9th, and Lewis Goodway 10th. And a shout out to Callum Newsham as well. His father's doing quite well in this race, but Callum Newsham started at the back of the grid. He's gained 15 positions, and there he is, look, chasing them down. He's in 12th position right now in that number 16 car and catching that group in front. He's got Josh Malin for company as well after his off earlier on. Brilliant drive this from Newsham.
Yeah, we spoke to Dave last week, and he was saying about how Callum was in his mini challenge racing is doing very similar as well, where he just gets better and better. And that's a fantastic effort from Callum to be at the point where he's gone from 28th place on the grid up to 12th. A fantastic gain of positions there for him. But back to the battle for the lead. It's Foggy and Harrison very close together, but this is where the real action is. If you go on board with Dave Newsham in that pack with Mark Fletcher, Ramstein, and Cedric and Turnbull, very close. There's car exiting the pits there as well. I'm going to stay well out of the way, and probably the best thing to do because these drivers fighting extremely hard. Damage there to the back of Mark Fletcher's car, so we had a little bit to the front, but Jason Cooper, I noticed, had a very big dent in the front of his car, so he's obviously had quite a hard impact with something or somebody. So as we have a look now at Ramstein going towards turn 4, Maxime Ramstein's had a very good night. He finished 4th in the first race, 5th in the second race. He's showing some real consistency tonight.
Yeah, and he comes into this race about 40 points behind Turnbull, so he could do with getting past Turnbull, who's, having got to the front of this queue, is not really escaping, is he? Jack Sedgwick and Maxime Ramstein very much going with him. David Baker there was dicing with Dave Newsham in the background. Newsham on the outside, not quite able to go through. Later that we saw coming out of the pit lane, and what must he have been thinking when he came into the pit lane exit and saw this lot bearing down on him? They've just, dare I say it, calmed down for a second. I think now that Epps is out of the situation, they're all starting to get into a bit more of a rhythm, but I don't think the battle is over by any stretch of the imagination. Or, for what it's worth, is this one, because Nickel Foggy is being caught by Kieran Harrison. Harrison set the fastest lap of the race a few laps ago, 1:53.78, and Kieran Harrison continuing on this lap to close. He's about a 10th faster so far on this lap, so Kieran could catch Nickel Foggy. Foggy really needs this victory. He's 11 points behind coming into this race. Harrison's got the bonus point for fastest lap as well. So as things stand, he's only going to take 3 points out of him. He absolutely can't afford to let Harrison through to steal another race victory.
It will just make that points gap go further and further out if Harrison can get past. He's got the slipstream. We were talking earlier about how Harrison made those 2 moves, and it's proved crucial because Matthew Turnbull took a while to get past. He's lost 4.5 seconds, and he's still caught in the midst of this battle. Jack Sedgwick now trying to take his podium off him round the outside going into turn 1. That looks like a very good move round the outside. Oh, that's beautiful. That's probably the best move we've seen through turn 1 this meeting, and Jack Sedgwick makes a stick, and as I say, that was a textbook move I had to do turn 1.
Matthew Turnbull losing places, losing points as well as a result of that, and he's not too pleased with the situation. He wants to try and get back past Jack Sedgwick, who I'm sure was down in about 9th at one point a few laps ago, and he's somehow got himself back onto the podium ahead of Turnbull and Ramstein. Fletcher still trying to fend off David Baker in the background, who has shaken off the attentions of Dave Newsham. Oh, Turnbull thought about looking up the inside of Sedgwick into turn number 5. It didn't quite work. Again, as they start battling, it's going to further bunch this little group of cars back together. The chicane they go. Sedgwick sideways as he turns in, gathers it together. Lots more speed out of the corner from Turnbull, though. He was quick through there in race 1, wasn't he, when he was fighting for the race lead? He got that particular section of track figured out, but the next corner, down at the hairpin, is where Sedgwick was so strong in race 1. So it's unlikely, I'd say, that Turnbull's going to get through here.
Good little battle to keep an eye on, though, because they've also got Maxime Ramstein not far behind, very close, only bumper to bumper. Another little side note as well, Dave Newsham in 8th is actually currently leading the pro section of this race as well. So Dave Newsham, 8th overall, 1st in pro. At one stage, we actually had a potential for a double Newsham podium, but Callum's been overtaken by Josh Malin to take 3rd place in the pros. But Dave Newsham, a fantastic job for him, and he currently leads that pros class of the race.
Yes, he does. Of course, Bobby Thompson and Mike Epps both have been doing well in the pros as well. Thompson down the order, but Mike Epps has settled back in line in 11th place, about 3 3/4 seconds ahead of Malin, so that's the next target for Josh. David Baker here at the inside of Mark Fletcher. Matthew Turnbull at the inside of Jack Sedgwick. Baker makes his move stick. Can Turnbull do the same into turn 1? I think he might. They're side by side. He tries to squeeze Sedgwick out. Sedgwick's over the curb. They're going to make contact. And Turnbull sideways in the gravel trap. You could see that coming a mile off. He bounces his way back on the track right in front of Fletcher and Baker, who split him. They go one either side. And poor David Baker, really the big loser there. At the inside of him comes Dave Newsham. But Matthew Turnbull there, he almost made the move stick. But then when he tried to turn into the left-hander at turn 2, hadn't cleared Sedgwick, and there was nowhere really for Sedgwick to go. He was all over the curb trying to avoid him. Contact was made, though, and it's Turnbull that ends up losing a place, and he could lose some more. Here comes Ramstein up the inside of Sedgwick as well for third position through the left-hander at the bottom of the hill. Fabulous racing here. It keeps on changing by the lap. Every time it looks as though it's settled down, someone pulls off a move, and it ignites the battle once again, and it's Ramstein now who finds himself at the front of the queue for the first time this race.
Yeah, Maxson Ramstein knows that points mean prizes, and with Matthew Turnbull having losing the positions, Ramstein not only got past Turnbull, but also managed to get past Jack Sedgwick as well. So Maxime Ramstein trying to make the most of this, because he still actually has a chance of getting past maybe Matthew Turnbull in the championship as well. And the championship connotations for this, for the car of Matthew Turnbull, is not only is he losing out to those in front of him, but those behind at the moment.
Ramstein's only 6 points ahead of Sedgwick for fourth in the championship, and Sedgwick's right behind him, so there's lots to play for here. Equally at the front of the field, though, whereas we just saw the gap is down to less than it's been all race, half a second now, separating Nickel Foggy and Kieran Harrison at the front of the field. Here they come down towards us. The gap is shrinking all the time because of the slipstream. It's under half a second now. I'm sure Harrison's going to get close enough this time into turn one, but the next time around, he quite possibly might be able to make the move stick. I was mentioning average race finishes in the first race and how Kieran Harrison's average race one finish is slightly better than Nickel Foggy's. Average of third place for Harrison in race one, and it's average of 3.6 for Foggy, so there's not much to choose between them. Race two averages, though, Harrison's average in race 2, 4.8. Foggy's is 3.3. Harrison has only won one reverse grid race so far this season, whereas Foggy's won 2, and that's where Foggy's been able to pretty much consistently throughout the season take points out of Harrison. He really needs to try and do the same thing today. We're into the closing stages, though, of this reverse grid thriller here from the circuit to Barcelona, Catalunya, and this battle for third place continues to rage on. Mark Fletcher, I think, is sensing a chance to get into the top 5 here. He's nibbling away at Matthew Turnbull. Couldn't quite get up the inside there. Mark Fletcher in the vivid pink and purple and black Year 1 racing car. You can't miss that in the middle of the pack, can you? But Matthew Turnbull, once again, is quick off the chicane, has a little look to the inside of Sedgwick, and that takes the pressure off of Maxime Ramstein. But so many positions up for grabs here, and all of these drivers pretty close together in the championship.
So close, and they know that every overtake can matter towards the end of the season when they are that close together. And we're also going to be getting the last lap board this time as well. And Nickel Foggy, though, has been caught by Kieran Harrison, and for maybe the first time in this race, he's going to have to maybe defend going into turn 1, because Kieran Harrison, once he got free of that battle, was really started to catch up, and from around 3-4 tenths back at the start of the straight, that gap becomes very decreasing quickly because of the slipstream, as we see now, already down half a tenth and not even reached the start-finish line yet.
Yes, so down into turn 1 they go then. Harrison might be able to have a go here. Does he want to take the risk, though? That's the big question. He's in second place. He's only going to lose 3 points to Foggy as of now, because they both are scoring a bonus point right now. Foggy's led laps in this race, which gives him 1 bonus point. Harrison has the fastest lap of the race, which gives him a bonus point. So it's a 3-point difference here. The gap would come back down under 10 points, but... And if you were Kieran Harrison, would you go for it? Would you take a risk here, knowing that you're still going to have a reasonably healthy championship lead going to Lime Rock next week, or do you just want that win anyway?
I think at this stage of the season, I don't think it's worth taking the risk, because you can go from second. If you have a contact, you won't get those points. And I think at the moment, although Kieran Harrison's doing the complete opposite, going to attack Nickel Foggy around the outside here, but I just think that if he gets second, he'll be happy, but he's going to try and go for the win. But I do think, as I say, that if he had to settle for second, it's not the worst result.
Doing the right thing, though, isn't he? He's going to the outside line. He's forcing the leader to defend. That way, he might be able to outfox him without actually having to make a real kamikaze move. He's close enough to have a go into the hairpin, though, I think. We're into the final half a lap of racing, and Harrison goes to the inside. He's not late enough on the brakes, though. Can Foggy make the corner? Yes, he can. Not quite as tight a line as Harrison, but he gets through ahead, and that might have been the last opportunity for Kieran Harrison to take a double race victory here from Catalunya. No one has been able to do that so far this season. No one has swept both races at any given race night. Harrison could be about to do it if he can find a way past Foggy. I just don't think he's got time to get there, though. We're into the final corner now. The checkered flag is at the ready, and Nickel Foggy is going to come through to take his 4th victory of the season to reduce the championship margin once again. Foggy gets the victory here at Catalunya. 2nd place goes the way of Kieran Harrison. He'll retain the championship lead, but he did have that contact earlier on in the race, don't forget. 3rd place for Maxson Ramstein. A great drive for him, a great entertainment from him and everyone else in this group. 4th place was Sedgwick, 5th was Turnbull, 6th David Baker, 7th Mark Fletcher, 8th Dave Newsham, 9th Jason Cooper, 10th for Mike Epps, 11th Lewis Goodway. All of those drivers I've just mentioned, nose to tail across the start finish line. Everyone from 3rd back to 11th spot. Josh Malin gets 12th. 13th there you saw for Callum Newsham, just ahead of Jamie Dorey, who caught him towards the end of the race, with Ashley Beard rounding out the points finishes. Nickel Foggy, though, he gets the race victory, and for Nickel, that's really important, not just because of the points, but I think it was important that he was able to bounce back again in the 2nd race and beat Kieran Harrison. He did the same at Snetterton last time. Harrison won the 1st race, but Foggy was able to take points out of him in race 2. This time around, though, Foggy gets the race victory, and that's the first win he's had, Dan, since the 1st race at Monza. So it's been a good 6 or 7 races since he was last on the top step of the podium. He's been scoring consistent points, but there's nothing quite like winning a race, not just for your championship hopes, but also just for your confidence moving into the next week.
Nickel Foggy will be a very happy gentleman when he speaks to Edwin May very shortly, but I think it's got to be said that his race 2 prowess really is what's helping him stay in the position he's in. Nickel, not maybe the best of qualifiers, and sometimes his race 1 results maybe are not as good as they should be potentially because of maybe fighting a bit through the pack, but in the 2nd race when he's further back, he just seems to have that. It's just weird. It's not weird, but it's sort of like it's a good skill where he just seems to know exactly where to put the car, and the way he analyzes the race, very analytical in the 2nd races, and it really helps him get through without contact and up to the front again.
Absolutely breathless stuff throughout from all of them, really. It was phenomenal racing. We've seen this time and again from the Power Max Racing E-Series. It's produced this kind of action. The reverse grid races kind of guaranteed to have that whole pressure cooker feel, aren't they, where you get a driver at the front who's not quite as quick but really desperate to get a win. They defend as if their life depends on it. It just causes carnage, quite honestly, behind them, but it's an entertaining kind of carnage. It's our kind of carnage, because generally speaking the driving standards are brilliant. They're able to race wheel to wheel, nose to tail, bumper to bumper without making significant contact, and that's what we saw from that race. Top quality driving from them all. The championship battle going on amongst it all as well is what adds that extra layer to it. Remember, we've still got another 6 races to go. We go to Lime Rock Park next week, then we're back to Silverstone the week after, and then it all finishes at the Brands Hatch Grand Prix circuit. And I really don't see any way this championship is not going to go down very end of the season. Let's recap the result then, shall we, for our 2nd race of the night, which was absolute thriller, and one that again could prove to be really significant come the end of the season, because Kieran Harrison was involved in that little bit of contact with Josh Malin earlier on, and we'll await and see whether or not there is a penalty or a discussion about that afterwards. We're not saying there will be, but given what happened at Snetterton to him last week, you've got to ask those questions. He really wanted to try and avoid making those sort of contacts, but unfortunately it can sometimes just go wrong. He ends up in 2nd place, though. Foggy gets the race victory, and by my rough mathematics, the gap's going to come down from 11 points to about 8 points, and it started the night at 5 points. So it has still been a good night for Harrison. He's extended the points margin over Foggy throughout the 2 races, but it has not been a straightforward affair at all. I think we should be able to, here we go, show you the results for the 2nd race. Nickel Foggy with the race victory, Kieran Harrison 2nd, and Maxson Ramstein in 3rd, and that could be significant as he tries to close in on Matthew Turnbull for 3rd in the championship. Jack Sedgwick, though, was right behind Ramstein, so those two are still going to be close together in the points. Turnbull was 5th, David Baker 6th, Mark Fletcher 7th, Newsham 8th, Jason Cooper was 9th, and Mike Epps, who finished 10th in race 1, that gave him the pole for race 2, and then he finishes 10th again in the 2nd race, but of course he did have that off-track excursion earlier on. Lewis Goodway was 11th, Malin 12th, so he'll lose a few points there in the Pro Championship, particularly to people like Dave Newsham, who he'll be a bit concerned about. He had Dave's son, Callum, right behind him in 13th. Jamie Dory was 14th. Ashley Beard rounds out the overall podium finishers. Then it was Lee Horn in 16th. Bobby Thompson came home in 17th, and that was a shame, wasn't it? That first lap battle he had with Ed May was unfortunately his downfall. He ends up down in 17th place. Freddie Hewitt 18th, Chris Slater 19th. Max Coates rounds out the top 20, and Ollie Wayne last of the finishers. Marlon Menden, Ty Keveth, Johnny Brandon, a non-finisher. That's a shame. That will definitely affect his chances of being a part of that 4th place discussion in the championship. Ricky Collard didn't have as positive a race as he was hoping for. He was a non-finisher. So to Adrian Campfield. We didn't see the best of him tonight, that's for sure. And Lane O'Connor also failed to get to the finish. Right then, lots to unwrap after that race, I think, because we have our podium drivers ready and waiting to have a chat with Ed May. And we have our race winner, Nickel Foggy, who came home victorious. He takes a few points out of Kieran Harrison, but he really had to hang on, Ed, towards the end of the race there.
Yeah, Nickel, that was a brilliant fight all the way from 8th position up into 1st. And we do seem to see this recurring theme of your first race. You bag some decent points. You're not always getting these race victories, but come the second race, you can carve your way through the field and get very, very good points. And that might have given you a championship leg up in the championship over your rival Kieran Harrison there.
Possibly. I mean, I had to push hard at the end. I think, the toe, he was in my toe the whole time. So, yeah, I was just pushing, trying to get consistent laps and stuff. And then I think it's about 3 or 4 tenths. The car behind will get a big toe. So it was scary. The last lap was scary, but held it together anyway. So,
Still, with the toe, you were able to put in some very, very quick laps, and he was only really able to keep up with you due to the slipstream, I think. If it was because this circuit has got a couple of long straights, so if it wasn't just for that, he would have been catching up a lot sooner. So great driving from you, Nicole, and we're going to be coming in to the next round at Lime Rock, a circuit that I don't think I've raced much in the TCRs. I don't know if you have as well, Nicole. So what's going to be your reading on the championship fight coming into this next round?
I've done a few laps. I've done a decent few laps there. I'm not sure, maybe once in the TCR, so I can't remember exactly what it's like, but should be good racing. Depends on I don't know if it's got that horrible chicane. There's this really slow chicane, or you can just go round and up over this sort of jump sort of bit. So, but normally it has pretty good racing there, I find. So looking forward to it anyway. Hopefully I can, if it's the same thing again, then maybe the second race will be a better option.
Yeah, well, keep working on those starts and keep coming through the field, Nicole. You put on a great show for us, and brilliant job getting the race victory there, Nicole.
Sweet, thanks very much, man. Catch you next week.
That's Nickel Foggy then, our race winner. That's the 3rd reversed grid race that he's won this season. He's won 4 races, and 3 of them have been from the reversed grid, the exception being Monza a bit earlier on in the season. He only just hung on to the victory, though, because the championship leader, Kieran, came home in 2nd place. It was an eventful race for Kieran, Ed, and that contact he had with Josh Malin, I'm sure, caught his attention.
Yeah, definitely. I was going to come on to that, Kieran. That was a very, very good fight through the field from 10th, but it wasn't without its dramatics. We saw coming into, I believe it was turn 6, a slight amount of contact there. We want to just get your opinion on that incident with you and Josh Malin.
I'd like to apologise to Josh. On my end, it was netcode. There was no contact, but I was honestly just trying to slot in behind him and cover off whoever was on my outside. I can't remember who it was. Just wanted to follow him through, but the little bit of netcode contact is unfortunately enough to send him off. I felt really bad for him, but I hope he understands. But I know I'd be angry in his position. But again, nothing I can do about the netcode.
Yeah, this is the thing with the virtual world, is that we have some slight discrepancies with where each car is, and sometimes we can have these unfortunate incidents. But Kieran, you've still got to be happy with race victory and coming home in 2nd place. An overall very, very good weekend for you. And obviously coming into the next round of this championship, you're going to be hoping, I guess, to have some more consistent races like you've been having recently.
Hopefully, it was a good round for Nicole as well, with a 3rd and a 1st as well. But that race was hectic, especially at the start for me and Nicole, getting through the pack pretty quickly. But I could see in my mirror the crazy fight happening behind as well. I was slightly glad I was away from that just to be safe. But yeah, it's definitely a really good result. I think it's the best I've had so far on a particular round. So yeah, I'm really happy.
Yeah, definitely. And we've got Lime Rock Park coming up next. Is that a circuit that you think you'll be particularly strong at? Obviously, it's a circuit that maybe some of your rivals in the championship might not have had too much experience with.
Same. I've never driven this car around there, certainly. So interesting to see how it pans out. It's a short track, so I'm expecting everybody to be really close, especially in qualifying. Should be interesting, but we'll see how it goes.
Well, we're wishing you the best of luck, Kieran, and hoping that this championship fight, it looks like it's going to be going down to the wire, and we're going to be hoping that you can give us excellent, clean fighting between yourself and Nicole Foggy right to the end. Thank you very much, Kieran.
And then our championship leader still finishes second place in our second race. Third place went the way of Maxime Ramstein, and that was a real fighting drive for Maxime. He dropped down the order a bit in the early stages, fought his way back through onto the podium, Ed.
Yeah, Maxime, we saw you coming up through the field, and I remember watching just from the pit lane, you went side by side, I believe, with Jack Cedric for almost half a lap. So that was very, very good fighting between yourself and Jack, and surely you've got to be happy with your results this weekend.
Yeah, that was absolutely great racing from my point of view. I really enjoyed that battle, especially with Jack. Indeed, that was a long one, side by side. Yeah, start wasn't too great. I was kind of caught in a wrong train there, so I dropped back. But yeah, they were battling in front quite hard. I was just talking with Mike Ebbs, and he was defending for his life, he said. So that bunched us up, and somehow I managed to get out in front. So really happy.
Yeah, great fight from you, Maxim. And it seems like it's a 2-horse race for the championship, but I'm sure that you're going to be there trying to be a presence and making sure that you can at least make this championship fight a little bit interesting, getting in the mix between the likes of Nicole Foggy and Kieran Harrison like you've been doing these past few rounds.
Of course, I won't be giving them any points. I'll just keep trying. Probably not in it for the win, but I think third or fourth, that's my goal. So I'll keep trying. Really fun racing.
Yeah, and obviously, speaking of fun racing, we're going across the pond now, across the Atlantic over to America and going around the Lime Rock circuit. Is that one that you've feel like you're going to have good pace at?
I think so. I'm not sure if it's the layout with the chicane. I hope it's without the chicane. But it's a.
You're not the only one.
But it's basically the iRacing default track. All the rookie races are on this track, so I know it very well, and I think most of us know it very well. So looking forward to that one.
Yeah, definitely. Well, great job, Maxim, and great job on the podium. You've had some very, very good results. I believe 4th place in race 1 and 3rd place. So good, consistent results, Maxim. Great job tonight.
Thank you. See you guys next week.
Maxime Ramstein then 3rd place, and yeah, to Ed's point, he's closed in now. He's within 40 points of Matthew Turnbull in the chase for 3rd, but he's still only 8 points ahead of Jack Sedgwick, who's about 5 points ahead of David Baker, so it's very close for 4th place in the championship. Speaking of close, Ed, Mike Epps, our pole sitter, was close quarters with a lot of drivers over the course of that race. He started on pole position. Things didn't quite go to plan, but Ed, he certainly kept us entertained throughout his stint at the front of the field.
Yeah, definitely, Mike. That's really, really gutting for you. I'll imagine coming from pole position finishing down in 10th. If there was another race, you could have found yourself on pole for an extra one, but sadly we only have time for 2 exciting races. Otherwise, I'm sure that myself, Dan Blake, and Andy would all collapse. But great result anyway, Mike.
Yeah, where's the 3rd race, boys? What? No one told me the program. Never mind. No, it's a shame to fall back, but I did say to all the boys, sorry in advance on the grid, because I knew I don't quite have the pace of some of the usual names at the front of this series, and it does feel a lot like a TCR car, this car, but there's just something slightly unusual about the tyre modelling, I think, within iRacing that I just, with this car and this combination of car and tyre, I don't know, I just don't quite have what they've got. I'm coming off the last corner behind a couple of the big names, the big sim guys, and I'm just sat there baffled, like, how did they pull away? They're just pulling along. So next best thing is to back them all up for as long as you can, which lasted till about lap 5, I think.
Yeah, well, you still had some very, very good defensive driving, and I'll apologise because I'm the person that does the setups for these cars, and it's a car with the tyre model. You can't really throw it into the corners as much. I found when I was racing with Dan Blake, we've done some endurance racing together in this car. It's a car that you can't really toss into corners. It's very tricky to get a handle of, and you've been showing that you're still more than capable of throwing this TCR car in, and obviously very, very disappointing for you to get in the wars and find yourself down in 10th place.
Yeah, it's all right. I think, yeah, like, to touch on that a little, there's quite a big drop off of grip once you step over the cliff, if you like, in iRacing, and it just requires a little less aggression and a bit more patience, and that's something that requires lap after lap after lap to really perfect. And I've just come away from driving on rFactor 2 all weekend in the Le Mans 24-hour virtual. And that is kind of the opposite end of the spectrum in terms of driving a sim. You give that thing 110% to get a good lap out of it, because the tyre can almost come back from absolutely nowhere and still give you some grip. So it's difficult cross-platforming in this kind of sim racing world, and it's something that I guess I'm challenging myself more and more to do, at the risk of looking stupid, but at the same time entertaining you guys. So.
Yeah, well, it's nice to get your input as a professional real-life driver on the difference between the two sims. It's very nice and interesting to hear your feedback about them. Obviously, before we go, we'll have a little quick chat about the next round. So what do you think your prospects are going to be coming into this next round?
I've got to confess, I don't know where it is. So that's
Lime Rock.
Lime Rock. Oh, God. Lime Rock. How many laps have I done there? Millions. Because everyone has it on iRacing.
Well,
that'll be interesting. I think that'll be some good racing, actually, because to get through there, you're gonna have to get your elbows out and get stuck in, and you poor guys dealing with the protest afterwards are gonna have to have a couple cans of Red Bull, I think.
Thankfully, I don't have to do that, Mike, and that's great chatting to you. Luck for this next round, and thank you very much for stopping to chat with us.
Cheers, guys. Thanks everyone for watching, and thanks for throwing this whole championship. It's been good fun. So see you later, guys.
Cheers, Mike.
Cheers, boys. See ya.
Tell you what, I'm going to campaign for Mike to have his own spot on our broadcast every week, because that was thoroughly entertaining, almost as entertaining as the racing that he was involved in out on the track as well. Fantastic. Mike Epps, a real character of the UK motorsport scene, and another pro driver who is learning all of the pleasures of being involved in sim racing. Right, one final chat then before we go, and it's time to chat with Jack Oliphant, who has, as ever, been covering some of the lower tier action Power Max Racing eSeries. It's not just the action in the Premier tier. There are 3 or 4 other tiers that cater for some of the drivers that are a bit slower in that qualifying night we had at the start of the season, but still produce really, really good action. And Jack, you've had a bit of an away day tonight, haven't you? You've been following the tier 2 action for a change. And how have you found it? I'm sure the racing is equally as entertaining down in tier 2 as it has been in the other tiers.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we thought we'd make a bit of a show with the tier 2 guys. Obviously, they've produced some fantastic racing over the last couple of weeks, and we thought, you know what, we'll get the camera on them, and they absolutely produced some fine racing as well. To round out the top 3 of that race one, we had Chaz Cleland, who was the championship leader, and by some margin as well, nearly 100 points, the championship leader going into race 1. He took race 1 victory as well. So Jordan Naylor was second, and James King was third. But really, the story of that first race was Ross Bartle. He started on pole position, got turned around in the first corner by a bit of a netcode incident, I think. Ended up coming from 15th to 4th position. So a fantastic drive by him. Really gave us something to watch for sure. And in race 2, the first place of Sean Gardner, who drove an absolutely dominant race, really. And he got through on the second lap and led from the front and actually pulled away from championship leader Chaz Cleland. So, yeah, really good drive by Sean. And second place was Chaz Cleland, as I mentioned. And James King in third place with a good battle with Jordan Naylor as well. So, really good 2 races in tier 2. So, I thoroughly enjoyed my evening.
Good, I'm glad to hear it. I thought you probably would. I know that they've brought in the organisers some new prizes and awards now, haven't they, for the remaining rounds across all of the tiers? Things like best overtake of the night and the forever forward overtake for the most places gained. And we definitely had a few candidates for overtake of the night in our tier. What was it like down with you? Some interesting overtaking going on?
Actually, I was extremely impressed at the efficiency of the overtaking that went on in Tier 2. Sometimes you might think lower down the order, you might see a few Hail Marys and a few lunges late on the brakes and all that sort of thing. But actually, everyone was really concise, lining each move up and making sure they were very respectful of the other drivers around them. So, yeah, often in sim racing, you see maybe a few incidents and a bit more contact. But in Tier 2, very clean, I have to say. I was very impressed.
Yes, well, we'll watch those races with interest, I'm sure. It's nice to see that a lot of people have been taking the time to go and watch not only the Premier Tier action, but the Tier 1, 2, and 3 races as well. I know Next Gen have been streaming a lot of the races too. You stream them too, and we can go and watch them on your social media pages. So where do people need to go to catch up on all of the Tier 2 action?
Well, absolutely. If you want to catch up, then head over on my Facebook page. It's Jacko Racing 1. If you just put in www.facebook.com/Jacko Racing 1, you can find the page and it'll be the top video. As I say, it's the most recent. So I hope you come down, give it a like, and join us next week, potentially.
Looking forward to it. Thanks very much, Jack, as ever, for popping in for a chat. We'll speak to you again next week from the Lime Rock Park circuit in America. And I know I said that was the last chat we were going to have, but Si McNally from PowerMax has joined us again. We won't keep you too long, Si. I know that you've been feeling a tad under the weather today, but if ever there was a remedy to make you feel a bit better, I think the racing we've seen tonight might just be it.
Yeah, that was brilliant, wasn't it? I mean, I was at the end of race 2. I was properly on the edge of my seat between Foggy and Harrison. That was some proper touring car racing, and it's good to see it clean as well. It's good to see not everyone trying to fire each other off and acting like it's a game. It's good. Yeah, really positive.
And not obviously they're fighting for a championship too, so that battle has some real significance. But the action that was going on behind them in third position, I made a comment during the race. I think that people like to tell me, the discussion's been opened up recently about sim racing versus real world racing, and people like to compare the two. And people do like to tell me that, oh, this sim racing thing is a lot easier. Drivers go for moves in sim racing they wouldn't go for in real world because it's easier to do. It really isn't, though. Some of the racing that we saw in that second race, they were inches apart at 130, 140 miles an hour. That ain't easy in the sim world, in the real world, anywhere, is it? That takes some real skill.
Yeah, it's really difficult. I think anybody that thinks that the sim racing's just as easy, well, a lot easier than real racing, need to actually have a go on a proper simulator program like this rather than just a game. We actually had a chap in at the office earlier who's testing one of our cars this week, and he had a go in the car with the setup at Donington, and he found it really tricky. Like it's something that's really hard to get used to, I think.
Speaking of testing, so I know that you and the team are going to be getting busier and busier over the next few weeks because we were all very happy to hear that real world racing is getting that one step closer to happening now. We're starting to see some of the teams heading out there and getting their season testing back underway, and I know PowerMax are very much looking forward to a busy season this year, competing in a number of championships and a number of testing programs therefore about to get underway.
Yeah, it's kind of gone from 0 to 100 in the space of a week. I mean, obviously we knew it was coming, and we've kind of been anticipating it, but people are back in the workshop. Martin's back in the workshop putting cars together, getting cars set up, getting ready. The guys are actually probably now at Donington Park, so we're testing at Donington Park tomorrow with the Leon TCR, and then up to Alton Park on Friday with it. We've got quite a bit of testing going on through July. We've got Time Attack in July. We've got I'm trying to think what else. We've got Volkswagen Cup TCR, and then obviously first weekend in August we're back at the BTCC. So yeah, it's all exploded.
And speaking of PowerMax as well, you had a bit of a stint in front of a camera, didn't you, recently? Because I watched a thoroughly entertaining and actually very informative video, courtesy of you guys and Fastar as well, a bit of a collaboration between the two of you. Learned some really, really interesting stuff about the team and about it's not just its involvement with motorsport, but actually the history of PowerMax themselves as well. And that's a project I know that we were talking about this last week. A lot of people have since got away and watch that, and it really goes to show just how much goes into running a team at that sort of level.
Yeah, I mean, I think 35,000 people, more than that now, have watched that video, so it's done fairly well. The guys at Fastar, their video production, a guy called Alex, is just second to none. He's worked with Red Bull, he's worked with Monster. He is an absolute genius when it comes to putting video together. But we spent a bit of time week before last down at the workshop filming, so that was our kind of introduction to who we are, where we came from, a bit of history. But over the next few months, we're going to be doing a little bit of a series with Fast R about just how much goes in behind the scenes, because I think even people in other forms of motorsport don't realise just how much goes into running those two cars, into running the two BTCC cars. I mean, it takes 10 people's full-time job. It's quite eye-opening, really.
It really is, and I can't recommend that video enough. It really is something that all of our viewers should go and take a look at. Right, so we'll let you go and put your feet up and relax a bit after what's been a pretty hectic night of racing, and we'll see you next week at Lime Rock Park. Really looking forward to that one.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to that one. Just want to say thanks again to everybody, to all the Year 1 guys, to Next Gen, to XVR, to VRA, everybody involved with it. It's all come together really well, so really happy.
Indeed it has. Yeah, so Simon McNally there from Power Max Racing, and good to hear that there is stuff going on now in the real world as well. Motorsport is not that much further away. We've got plenty more racing to bring you, though, from the Power Max Racing eSeries long before we get back to the real world racetracks. We've still got 3 nights of racing to go, 6 races left to decide the outcome of the championship. We head, as I said, next week to Lime Rock Park in America, a circuit that is definitely going to mix things up, I think, a track that not many drivers have real world racing experience at, or even perhaps that much experience in iRacing. Then we head back to more familiar shores at the international circuit at Silverstone before it all comes to what's sure to be a dramatic conclusion on the magnificent Brands Hatch Grand Prix circuit at the end of the season. I'll be there with Dan Blake for the remaining races of the season as well. And Dan, your closing thoughts at the end of what's been another superb night of racing. You know, we get to the end of these nights, and every time I seem to say to you, well, that was better than ever, wasn't it? That's the best racing we've seen all season. And I'm going to say the same thing to you again tonight. That second race was fantastic.
Top 10 of both races have put on some superlative racing, and as I alluded to, we're seeing very, very little contact at all. It really is great racing, and next week is just going to be even better again. That is the chicane at Lime Rock. That's something I'm looking forward to, because not only have got the actual chicane as well, but those sausage curbs on either side, you catch them wrong and you're going to know about it. They're quite unforgiving. So I think next week at Lime Rock, we can see more twists and turns and on the path to championship glory, and we still are no closer to finding out what's going to happen between Nickel Foggy and Kieran Harrison. It could very, very well go down to that final race of the season, and I think I'm pretty confident that will be the case.
I mean, I've got it about 8 points between them now. Harrison 8 points ahead of Foggy, but I mean, can you start to see an advantage going either way if you really start dissecting it all? I mean, they're so evenly matched. Harrison's got more wins, Foggy's got more podiums. Can you see it going one way or the other, or is it still too close to tell, do you think?
I think Nickel needs to try and get the qualifying mastered a bit, because each time that Harrison gets pole position, obviously that's another point. And if Foggy wants to try and stop Harrison from getting those extra points, he needs to just try and get those qualifying points away from Harrison, really, by getting pole position himself. Because, as we say, fastest lap points, pole position points, laps led points, there's a couple of those per meeting, and you're getting 6-8 points before the end of the season, 6 points even before the end of the season, potentially just do that. So I think it's just a case of trying to pick up all these little bonus points now as well, as much as possible.
Yeah, absolutely. They all count, and with it being as tight as it is, you need every single one of them you can get. Well, that is about all we have time for, I think, here from Barcelona. Thank you, everybody, for joining us. It's been a fabulous night of tin top racing in the Power Max Racing eSeries. And as I said, thanks to all of our partners, Next Gen Racing, the Virtual Racing Association, XVR Sim Racing Team, and of course, Year 1 Racing TV. Graham Sessford, our wonderful producer, has done a great job of keeping us on track and keep following all of the action that was going on the track. And there was almost too much to watch at times, but we kept on top of it all. For all of his work behind the scenes. Thanks for everyone for joining us. Thanks to the rest of the commentary team too, Dan and Ed and Jack. We'll hear from them all again in a week's time here on Year 1 Racing TV, when we go across the pond to the Lime Rock Park circuit in America. 6 races to go, 8 points in it at the top of the championship. You don't want to miss another second of Max Racing eSeries action with just 3 more weeks of racing to go.